Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Market Open. We are live. It is Wednesday, January 28th, and today is one of those days. Today is one of those days that I've been blessed enough to experience over the past couple years. A lot of you guys have experienced this type of a day with me. It's one of those days where there is so much going on in the global capital equity markets, and we have so much to analyze, so much to go through, so much money to either make or lose. And it's why we do this. It's the exciting element of caring about the stock market. Today we have FOMC, Mr. Jerome Powell. This is one of his last 4 meetings where he will tell us if he cuts rates or not. Hint, hint, we're likely not getting a rate cut. The probability is 2.8%. I mean, you're telling me there's a chance, but we're likely not getting it. But it's still going to be fun to see what Powell has to say, how he thinks about the trajectory of rate cuts, and ultimately where he sees the future of the economy going. And then on top of that, you got Meta, Microsoft, and Tesla. We had a bunch of earnings already in the pre-market that we're going to discuss, including Starbucks, ASML. ASML absolutely crushed it. So we'll get into all those earnings. But we have 3 of the biggest tech companies on the planet with Microsoft, Meta, and Tesla. I will be live at 3:30 p.m. Eastern, and I'll be live at 2:25 p.m. Eastern. So 2:25 p.m. Eastern for J Powell, 3:30 p.m. Eastern for big tech earnings. And I will have Tanner, Jose, Neil, Sam. It'll be a bunch of us together on these earnings, and we're going to have a lot to talk about. So today's going to be a big day. It's going to be an important day. You don't have every Wednesday that comes often where you have this much stuff happening at the same time. We also had a lot of stuff happen last night after hours that is implicating the market. The S&P 500 passed 7,000 in the futures. We are not officially there yet in the pre-market, getting a little bit of a pump right there at 696. We got to 698 at one point. I do think today there is a decent shot that we get above 7,000. But hopefully we will have a shot to get there. And based on the news that we had last night, it will continue to influence why this market seems to be more bullish or not. And so there should be a good amount of stuff to talk about and get into. For those that are saying there's a video lag or the sound is out of sync, try refreshing. It really isn't the Wi-Fi in that situation. The Wi-Fi is fine. It's usually a StreamYard thing, but it happens for a couple minutes, and then when it refreshes, it tends to be okay. So hopefully it's not that bad. Yeah, someone just said it's not lagging for me at all. It's a YouTube thing more than a StreamYard thing, I think, even in this situation. That happened on a couple other streams last week. So try refreshing it. If not, it should be fixed hopefully in like a couple of minutes at most. All right, so a lot to talk about, a lot to get into. Thank you again, everyone, for being here. Again, this is going to be a very, very long day. For those that are asking why PDYN is up, I'm seeing a lot of questions right there. They just won a U.S. Air Force contract for multi-domain swarming tech. Shout out to Tess. She just sent me that information. So that stock right there, $291 million market cap, up 40% now in the pre-market. This honestly reminds me of Rich Tech Robotics, which is a little bit higher of a market cap at around $1 billion, but they got a massive Microsoft deal yesterday. There was up 44%. By the way, why is Rich Tech down 7%? They just did a $40 million offering, which the stock's up 45% in a day. I mean, yeah, you're going to do an offering. It's smart for the company to take advantage of all that momentum. So Palladian AI Corp just won a U.S. Air Force contract for multi-domain swarming tech. That's why that stock is up 44%. Congratulations to anyone who's in that, as that stock is up 40% right here in the pre-markets. All right, so let's get into it. It's a big day. It's a big day, dude. This is a lot of stuff happening today. Lots and lots going on. I mean, we will have hundreds of billions of dollars going back and forth today. And it's going to be pretty exciting. But this is why we do this, right? This is the fun of, watching the markets versus watching Netflix or, deeply caring about pop culture. It's like we care about the markets because there's just so much going on. First of all, it's exciting. It's entertaining, but the entertainment and excitement factor also fuels into the financial mobility factor, which just makes it fun if you're able to sort of navigate your financial future while keeping up with the markets. And today's one of those days where it's going to be pretty massive across the board. Let's start off with ASML. Put in the chat if you own this thing. You guys crushed it. Q4 earnings, revenue, 9.72 billion euros versus 9.57. That's a beat. Bookings, 13.16 billion versus 6.85 expected. Basically a 50% beat right there. That's really why I think the stock got up 8%. Revenue 34 to 39 billion. Guidance estimate was 35 billion. They also announced a 12 billion euro share buyback for the next 2.5 years going until 2028. This stock is now up more than 40% year to date. You know, this was one of the more disrespected stocks in the semiconductor ecosystem. I remember October of 2024, I was in India and they had an earnings where they missed on revenue and the stock fell to like, I think it was $550 or something like that. And it was just one of those names where people were saying, you know, what's the point of this? Now their revenue growth is not crazy, right? They're not growing at like 50% like NVIDIA, but the bookings shows that their ability to actually implement their technology, get the orders for their technology, and ultimately have this, one could argue, not necessarily unlimited demand, but a moat around lithography that is almost perceptually leading to unlimited demand, which is kind of what's going on in the memory space. We'll talk about Seagate technology in a second. That's why this stock is getting the momentum that it's getting. $15.25 US in the pre-market, up 4.85%. It's really good for NVIDIA, which is getting finally a bump above 190. It hit 192 in the pre-markets right now, 190, 180. Good for AMD, good for Broadcom. I mean, good for the entire semiconductor ecosystem, obviously helping the S&P 500 as well, up 0.21%. So very nice to see that ASML is getting some love. And I mean, it should be relatively bullish for the big tech companies that are reporting today if you have the semis that are showing their momentum as well. Seagate Technologies, they crushed earnings as well yesterday. That's up 8.5%. The most important quote they said is that they are booked out until the end of 2027. The reason this matters, obviously, is because Micron kind of said the same thing. So did Samsung. By the way, SK Hynix also had earnings today. They absolutely crushed, as you can see right here on the screen. Once again, the same argument that is being said by all of these companies around memory, which, yes, it's cyclical. Yes, we've seen these cycles crash and burn before, go up and then have this epic top and then they come down. But in the AI ecosystem, given the unlimited amount of demand seemingly that there seems to be for GPUs and all the different use cases of AI, HBM, DRAM, this stuff really does matter. And as you can see right here, HBM revenue more than doubled year over year for SK Hynix. They beat on revenue. They beat on operating profit. SK Hynix put up better operating margins today than Taiwan Semiconductor for the first time in 7 years. We're talking about Taiwan Semiconductor. SK Hynix put up better margins than them. It's no joke. I mean, it really is no joke. And it's absolutely incredible to see the momentum that's happening in the memory ecosystem. So Seagate, which directly competes with Western Digital, Micron's above 430 in the pre-market. Are we still there? We are 423. We were at 433. That's up 3.5%. Micron right there now, probably going to open up at close to a $500 billion market cap. And then you got SanDisk, which was running yesterday. Seagate pretty much laid the framework for all those companies to have a massive earnings. SanDisk right there up 5% at $500 in the pre-market as well. So very exciting. Intel sold their memory business to SK Hynix. Of course they did. Of course they did. Why wouldn't Intel have done that? Speaking of Intel, real quick, there were some rumors yesterday. Intel's up 5% right here in the pre-market that NVIDIA is going to be using some of their fabs. And that's what got the market excited. We don't know if this is officially true. A couple of good sources have reported this, but rumors circulate that NVIDIA will release Intel manufacturing orders in 2028, a three-pronged analysis of TSMC's strategic thinking. This is also part of NVIDIA's approach to please Donald Trump and say, hey, we are diversifying. We are using American manufacturers to continue the revolution of onshoring semiconductor manufacturing in the United States. And Intel, you know, they said they have a lot of demand. They're messing up on the supply execution of that demand. I think that's why the stock got hit. But if they were to get a big deal like that with NVIDIA, I mean, they already have a massive investment from NVIDIA. So it kind of makes sense. Why wouldn't NVIDIA throw them some chips and say, hey, can you make this for us? Especially if it's in a part of the business that NVIDIA doesn't really need to obsess that much about. I mean, yeah, their equity stake goes up. Intel gets more business. Trump is happy. It's a win-win-win. And this might help Intel stock get some momentum as well. At the same time, is Biddy giving us 90? Dude, if crypto can rally today with big tech, Ethereum at 3,000, that would be fun. That would be very fun. I'm not going to be live all day. We'll end the market open at around 11:15, take a little break. Then we'll get to FOMC at 2:30. And then FOMC into earnings will be all day. So we'll have like a 2-hour break between the market open and FOMC. And then FOMC will just lead us into big tech earnings, and we'll be live basically from like 2:30 to 7. So that's the schedule that we have for today. So that's what we have on Bitcoin and Ethereum. Real quick, before we get into the AI headlines from last night, gold and silver, you cannot hold these down. Gold has hit $5,200. I mean, what do you say at this point? Up 3.4%. There's actually a deeper reason I think gold and silver are rallying right now, which we should probably talk about that before we get into the AI stuff, because I think that's actually important. So we'll get into that first. And then silver at 113.76. Silver is back up 7%. And no, it's not at the highs that it was at 2 days ago when it had the best day since 2008, up 14%, but it's pretty damn close. 113.8 versus 116. I mean, for everyone who said it was putting in a massive top, and the amount of counts I saw on X that were like, silver just topped, silver just topped. I mean, look, it's $3 away from getting back to those highs. So I just think there's something bigger that's going on right now with the precious metals. And it doesn't necessarily feel like they are topping. At the same time, I have not put out the Substack on copper yet. I'm really trying to make it good and get a lot of details and research. But when you look at copper versus silver and gold, copper's up 38% in the past year. Silver's up almost 300%. Gold is up almost 100%. Like, it just hasn't moved compared to silver and gold. And when you really look at the research and the use cases of how much copper we're going to need, just based on the data center thesis, not even the electric grid part of that thesis, it feels like there is a massive supply shortage that is coming up over the next couple of years, which should be an asymmetric bet for copper. It also does not feel like people are late to the story. I mean, you missed a 38% rally. Okay, cool. Like, if there's another 100% to go, feels like you're early. So I'm still working on that. Hopefully we'll get it out soon by the end of this week. But trying to digest all the risks and bear cases as well to have a better understanding of what's going on with copper. All right, so let's talk about the extension to this gold, silver commodities argument. So Trump had a bunch of quotes last night. He did a variety of different interviews. The thing that stood out to me the most was this clip right here, where, well, one thing we've been noticing for the past couple of days is the weakening in the US dollar. We hit 95.18 last night. Let me check right now on the Dixie. We are at 96.28, so we're up a little bit. Trump was asked about this, and well, as soon as he said this, you saw gold and silver continue to rally.
No, I think it's great. I mean, the value of the dollar. Look at the business we're doing. No, dollar's doing great. You know, it's very interesting. If you look at China and Japan, I used to fight like hell with them because they always wanted to devalue their yen. You know that? The yen and the yuan. And they'd always want to devalue it. They devalue. And I said, not fair that you devalue, because it's hard to compete when they devalue. But they always fought, no, our dollar's very good.
So Trump said that yesterday, basically saying, hey, I am fine with a weak dollar, and all our other competitors have consistently devalued their currency for certain advantages. So why don't we do it? At the same time, it's not that hard to believe a stance right here, because this is what he said on July 25th, 2025. He's been very consistent about this idea of a weak dollar.
Why has the dollar fallen so much, and are you concerned about that?
Well, you know, I'm a person that likes a strong dollar, but a weak dollar makes you a hell of a lot more money. Hate to tell you, I don't know if you study it, but I study it. And if you look at the yen,
I went to Penn and work.
So even back in July of 2025, Trump was saying a weak dollar makes you a lot of money. Now, what are the reasons for this? There's like two fundamental reasons I think it's important for everyone to understand to get a grasp of how exactly this is helping gold and silver. So obviously the biggest reason, which is what Trump was on for most of 2025, which is exports. When the dollar weakens, US goods become cheaper for foreign buyers. This is the entire reason Trump wanted the dollar to come down last year, because it would decrease the trade deficit. We have a pretty aggressive trade deficit. One of the ways to decrease it is we could have more exports and more demand, which would also lead to more jobs, more manufacturing in the United States. You need a weaker dollar than that. You can't have the dollar at 109, which is where it was at when he got inaugurated, in order to make that happen. Number two, which is the one that we all care about the most, when the dollar falls, it takes more dollars to buy the same ounce of a commodity, increasing the value of a hard asset, aka gold and silver. Also, investors usually run to something as a store of value, cough, cough, not Bitcoin, over the past couple of months, when fiat weakens. And obviously, fiat USD is weakening. That's why people are coming to gold and silver. Now, we talked about this yesterday for all the Europeans. I know you're feeling this right now. It's not the best for international investors. If you're in Europe, you've obviously been feeling the pain of a weakening dollar based on the idea of the dollar weakening, which leads to your actual portfolio weakening. But at its core, based on what Trump said yesterday, he wants the dollar to continue being weak. So when we look at gold and silver having this type of rally, silver now passing 114, it can't just be this idea of like, oh, this is a meme-ish thing, or oh, this is like retail FOMO. It's like, no, there might be a coordinated attempt by global investors, central banks all across the world to say, if this is what the president is going to be spouting as his official stance on the dollar, I mean, literally these things started going up after hours once Trump gave that quote about not caring about the dollar weakening, then we've got to diversify into harder assets. And as a result, I think that's what we're seeing with silver and gold. So yes, it's not the best for the international investors. I've heard many of you in the comments yesterday complaining about it. And I mean, I can understand it sucks, but at the end of the day, this is how Trump is navigating it. It just means you have to have more gains to justify the gains you already have to overcompensate the dollar weakening, which again sucks, but this is how Trump is playing it. So I think every time we see gold and silver reach a new all-time high, we have to remember, like, this is not only a structural super cycle, but at least for the next couple of years until you get a new administration. And if you get a new administration that also is happy with the dollar weakening because it makes exports more likely for the US, then boom, you're going to have this dollar continue to weaken. Now, what does that mean geopolitically? What does that mean for our military? What does that mean for the respect people have across the world? What does that mean for our treasuries? I don't think it's the best thing in the world for the dollar to continuously weaken, especially if people don't want to own literal US dollars with our treasuries. As you can see right here, 10 years still gapping up basically at 4.25. But it should be good for gold, should be good for silver, and probably should be good for Bitcoin eventually. It also is going to be good for emerging markets. Yes, all those international stocks will be able to increase the percentage of bottom line profits they report on earnings as the dollar weakens, which again, I don't think that should be the bull case for buying international stocks, but that is one tailwind that should be on their side. So that's what we got on gold, silver, and the dollar as it continues to weaken. Again, the Fed will make their decision at 2 p.m. Eastern. For those that are asking, I'll be live at 2:25. And we will see if Jay Powell cuts rates. Most likely not cutting rates, but ultimately we'll see how the market reacts to it. S&P 500 right there at 696.98. All right, let's talk about AI and Anthropic. So I don't know if people saw this news yesterday, but this is some pretty big stuff. And then we'll get into all the earnings that we had this morning as well. By the way, real quick on NVIDIA, the reason it's pumping outside of Asml earnings, and maybe because of what Anthropic put out yesterday, because there's also some earnings for that. You had another headline right here for China. Before I get into that headline, let me just say happy birthday real quick to Charlie from Cheeky. Hey, Amit, can you please say happy 15th birthday to my son, Charlie? He's just listening to you as he gets into bed. Charlie, happy birthday. 15 years on this planet. That's incredible. Thank you for listening to the show. And I'm happy your parents are listening to the show as well. I remember being 15. 15 was a good time. What was that, 10th grade, sophomore year? Cherish your youth because it goes away so quickly. You wake up one day and you're 28 years old. So happy birthday to you. Hope you enjoy it. One more year and you'll be able to drive if you're in the United States. And 6 more years and you'll be able to drink. So and then in 3 more years, you'll be able to pay taxes. So, life's coming at you quick. Happy birthday, man. Hopefully you enjoy it. And thank you, Cheeky, for being part of the show as well. So we had a Wall Street Journal headline that said 3 Chinese cities where NVIDIA has offices have been seeing a grocery market delivering different types of fruits to local employees at a company party. The reason this article was making the argument around this is because now a bunch of different Chinese companies are getting access to NVIDIA chips, which is really, really important. And that's another reason why you saw China or why you saw Jensen go to China. I mean, at the end of the day, he is getting a lot more orders in regards to these H200s. So Alibaba, Tencent, and ByteDance are going to be the first 3 companies to get these orders for H200s based on how the article framed it. And, they're making a joke about Jensen eating fruit in the city. It was kind of satirical. It's like Jensen's about to sell tens of billions of dollars of chips to China, and he's buying these fruits from these wet markets. He knows he's about to crush earnings estimates. Even yesterday in the CoreWeave interview, he said, hey guys, we did not include China in any of our $65 billion guidance. That guidance is going to be increased most likely. He was basically saying read between the lines. And you're seeing a little bit of the tensions between China and the United States from an AI perspective starting to normalize, which is a good thing. And yes, he might be a big fruit guy, but also I would be buying some fruit from China if they were about to give me $15 billion. So that's what you got for NVIDIA, breaking above 190. Let's see if it can hold it. I'm a little skeptical that it holds 190 because every time it's had this type of a move in the pre-market, it then fades when the market opens. But today's a big day, and if big tech crushes it with Meta and Microsoft, that should be a tailwind ultimately for NVIDIA. Now, the biggest news last night in the AI space was Anthropic. Anthropic came out yesterday and they put out some big boy numbers. So first of all, two things happened. Number one, they're raising $20 billion, not $10 billion anymore, because they have been oversubscribed demand. In fact, I got a text message from someone today who got an offer to get into Anthropic stock in the private markets. They texted me yesterday. They said, do you think I should take it? And based on how much I've been talking about Anthropic, based on how much I've been seeing the headlines, I was like, yeah, like whatever the offer is, I think he got an offer at 350 billion valuation, just buy it. Like, I don't have that offer. I'm not buying it. Amazon's my proxy, but if you have the offer, buy it. He was going to spend a couple hours, read through the investment memo, all that stuff. This morning, he texted me. He's like, it was oversubscribed by 2x in 90 minutes. In 90 minutes, it was oversubscribed. He got a private offer to invest in Anthropic at a $350 billion valuation. It was oversubscribed in an hour and a half by 2x. He didn't get the chance to invest. I mean, the level of momentum that is happening for Anthropic in terms of the investor psyche is becoming incredible. And the reason for that is because of what the information reported yesterday. Anthropic now sees revenue to $55 billion in 2026. They did $18 billion in 2025. That is a 300% increase in revenue. By the way, they did $100 million in 2023. So $100 million to $55 billion in 3 years. That's the type of explosive growth we are seeing from these tech companies. This is a good chart from A16Z that says the median company that is reporting in AI is showing 288% revenue growth, and the outlier companies in the top quartile, it's a hard word, quartile, are doing 693% revenue growth. So, I mean, you look at these types of numbers, and then you look at what Anthropic's basically guiding for, and it's really hard to be like, this is a overvalued bubble stock. I mean, if they're doing 55 billion in revenue and they're trading at 350 billion in market cap, trading at 6 times sales, that's not expensive. Someone tell me that 6 times sales is expensive for a company growing 300%. I mean, you got stocks in the public markets that are trading at 50 times sales, and they're not growing anywhere near 300%. Now, I know Anthropic's not profitable, but it's not like these companies in the public markets that are trading at these aggressive multiples also are like printing billions of dollars of profit either. So, I mean, from that perspective, it really does feel like Anthropic is running away with the LLM wars. They are winning. And as a result, I think that announcement in and of itself pumped Micron, AMD, NVIDIA, ASML. You're going to need all the semiconductor companies to come together to be able to support that type of revenue growth from Anthropic. And if Anthropic is able to do that, maybe OpenAI can replicate that. I don't think OpenAI is necessarily growing as fast, especially now in the enterprise as Anthropic. But the fact that the round is becoming oversubscribed, the fact that they're able to command an even higher premium on the multiple that they were originally going to raise at just means this story is not slowing down. Is that valuation public? Yeah. I mean, that was reported yesterday from the Financial Times. It might be like 400 billion, but the latest number we got from most of the outlets like Bloomberg reporting it is 350 billion, which honestly kind of seems cheap. Like OpenAI, by the way, we had another headline this morning, OpenAI and SoftBank. SoftBank is trying to put in another $30 billion into OpenAI. If this sounds like a headline that is similar, well, it's exactly the headline we heard in December. They already put in 22.5 billion back in December. They're trying to put in another 30 billion. SoftBank is in talks to invest up to 30 billion more in OpenAI, according to people familiar with the matter. The ChatGPT maker is seeking up to 100 billion in new capital from investors in a round that could value it as much as 830 billion. So you're telling me Anthropic is growing revenue at 300%. They're worth 350 billion. Let's say they're even worth 450 billion. OpenAI is not growing that fast, and they don't really have the enterprise moat that Anthropic has. They have way more users, daily actives on the consumer version of the app. But is that really as valuable given you have Gemini that's coming after the consumer, Meta? I mean, like, and they're worth double the Anthropic at 830 billion? I don't know. I don't really see how that makes sense. Obviously, we want all these companies to win, but at the end of the day, it does feel like Anthropic is the better deal right here. And the fact that SoftBank is ready to invest another 30 billion, I don't know if Masa is just like obsessed with Sam Altman. I don't know if he knows something that we don't know. I don't know if he thinks there's going to be some massive AI hardware product that's going to take OpenAI to trillions of dollars of valuation. But he's got to be bullish on something more than just the chatbot. There has to be something he knows. So another 50 billion that they are trying to put into OpenAI. Yeah, OpenAI Sora is dead. No one uses it. I mean, like, I got the invite to it months ago and I haven't opened it since. Like, it's one of those things where it's like, you know, why exactly would you pay that much for OpenAI? And it's hard to make the argument. It really is hard to make the argument. To be honest, this has gone viral on X. I think this is the most hilarious thing ever. And I think this is emblematic of OpenAI. 2 sticks of RAM cost $1,000 because of this shit. And like, it's true. Like, literally this shit is why RAM is having the type of shortage that we are seeing. And memory prices are increasing this much. And this is what OpenAI is saying, like that they're so excited to be able to build. Whereas Anthropic is like, hey, we can integrate into your enterprise workflow and we can make Excel more effective for hedge funds. And like, there's just so much more I think that Anthropic is offering here. Again, not trying to be bearish OpenAI. I think OpenAI should win, but you just want to see valuations remain normal to an extent. And you want to see these companies be able to fulfill their commitments because it deeply, deeply affects the public markets. So it's funny because the internet started with like cute cat videos, and like the biggest form of AI slop has been these like cat videos where cats are now like acting like human beings. But I guess cats continue to be the I guess you could call it the missing puzzle piece whenever there's a new technology that comes out. So that is what we've got. Bitcoin right there at 90,100. So that's the main AI update on Anthropic. Incredible to see them get that momentum. And that's also good for the data center plays. Nebius right there, that's up 1.5%. Iran hit $60 yesterday in the pre-market, still holding 60.33. It got to 60.78. CoreWeave got up to 112. It's now at 113 in the pre-markets. That stock now is up 4% as well. Yeah, the circular financing stuff. I mean, a lot of those concerns don't seem to be that big of a deal when you see the revenue growth, because at the end of the day, if there's some circular level of financing, but that is leading to an ROI for the end vendor or distributor of the financing, then eventually it doesn't become circular. So it just seems like a lot of the AI bubble talk that was so prevalent in November when we had that 5% drawdown, when you look at Seagate's earnings, when you look at Texas Instrument, which absolutely crushed it on their earnings as well, that stock's up 6%. When you look at SK Hynix, when you look at what NVIDIA is probably going to report, which is close to $70 billion of revenue, even what you look at with Intel's earnings, they had bad execution on the supply side, but unlimited demand almost is what it seemed. When you look at the CoreWeave deal with NVIDIA, it just doesn't feel like that bubble argument is as strong as it is. Why is Oracle down so much? So Oracle is down for a couple of different reasons. Oracle being down, I think, has nothing to do with the AI bubble narrative. Oracle is down because we talked about it yesterday. There's plans that they have potentially to lay off 20,000 people or significantly decrease their stake in Cerner, if not sell it, to be able to finance their data centers. So that's the one argument that TD Cowen had after doing some meetings with management. And I think that research report got the stock down. On top of that, you have their credit default swaps that are spiking. And as a result of those CDSs spiking at the level that they're spiking at, you just have people more hedging against the stock because they're afraid that the debt is going to be unsustainable. And again, the reason, we talk about OpenAI, and the reason a lot of us, I think, are skeptical on OpenAI is because the reason Oracle pumped to $350, Oracle should have never been $350. That's why the chart looks so lopsided. Oracle was 120 during the April meltdown. It's now at 170. That's a pretty good return. The problem is it went to 350 because they said OpenAI is going to pay us $300 billion. Broadcom said OpenAI is going to pay us $70 billion. OpenAI hasn't paid a dime to any of those companies. And if they have, it's nowhere near the capacity that Oracle or Broadcom has said. So from that perspective, that's where the OpenAI sort of overhang comes in. Same thing with Microsoft having a little bit of that overhang. They also will have earnings today. But I think that's more emblematic of an OpenAI issue versus a bubble primarily around AI. So that's what we got with the AI narratives of last night. SMCI, this one continues to struggle because their margins are not the best. 31.64, that's up a little bit in the pre-market. Palantir, I don't know why it's down today in the pre-market, 164.56. I will say what I've been saying for the past couple of weeks. I know people hate hearing it, but I don't really know what else to say. Palantir is up more than 30x from the lows. At some point, the valuation is going to have to be justified. And I think they've done a phenomenal job growing their operating margins. It's the best SaaS in the market, but still trades at a $400 billion market cap, 100 times sales. I think we need to be grateful that Palantir is even holding this multiple. People hate hearing that, but it is what it is. This is coming from someone who bought Palantir at $6. If you bought it at 200, it's a different story, but I think most people here also didn't buy it at 200. If you bought Palantir anywhere below $100, you've got to be grateful that it's holding this multiple. And I just don't think we can be super greedy and say it has to go to $250. Now, I think they're going to have a really good earnings on Monday, and I think that earnings will justify some pretty strong momentum. I don't know if that means the stock has to react to it. I mean, if NVIDIA couldn't get a boost after their last quarter where they beat by $5 billion on the top line and by $4 billion on the guidance, and NVIDIA was stuck at essentially 190, it ended up dropping to 170 the next day. Like, yeah, you just can't complain that Palantir is not pushing 200 yet, given that Palantir trades at crazier multiples compared to NVIDIA. So I don't think the stock needs to go down to like 120, 130, but I also don't think it needs to gap up to 190. And that's just my opinion on it. At the end of the day, the valuation needs to consolidate. And I think that's okay for Palantir. Cheeky, thank you for the 10 gifted memberships. Appreciate you being here, Cheeky. You did not have to do that. Again, happy birthday to your son. And I'm happy that he tunes into the show or listens into the show. It's important. He's 15. He'll be 18 soon. I'm sure he'll start getting interested in the markets, making money, trying to, provide for himself, all that stuff. And understand the markets is just another tool in the toolbox, especially at a young age, to be able to even have a chance to be ahead of the curve. So thank you, Cheeky, for the memberships. Really appreciate it. And happy birthday to your son as well. All right, so that's what we have on Palantir. Bitcoin right there at 90. NVIDIA up about 1.64%. Micron up 3% again. Micron is up because of Seagate. They absolutely crushed earnings, and that is why they're getting momentum. Speaking of earnings, let's take a look at some of the other earnings that we have. AT&T had earnings today. But before that, let's do GE Vernova because that's another big company. Revenue, they beat. EPS, they also beat. $13.39 versus $3.18. Can someone tell me why they beat this much? I tried to find out, but I couldn't see the reason. They beat by like 328%, beat revenue by 7%. Obviously, there had to be some equity gain that they took on their balance sheet to be able to make that argument. Revenue's up 4% year over year. EPS is up 674% year over year. Tax benefit, okay, that makes more sense. So GEV, the stock is up a lot this year. It's down in the pre-market. It was up 4% yesterday. Ultimately, we just need to see more momentum from the utility plays, which is what GE Vernova is operating as. And it's pretty damn good earnings. It's not like you're seeing momentum shake up. If anything, you're seeing momentum continue to go higher. They raised their revenue guidance from $42 billion to $45 billion, which is also very good. And they raised free cash flow guidance from $5 billion to $5.5 billion. So, net income includes a $2.9 billion tax benefit. Okay, so that's how they increased their net income. Meta had the opposite problem last time. They had a $15 billion tax loss. So this time Meta shouldn't have to deal with that. We'll talk about Meta and Microsoft in a second. But I mean, look, everything's going well with the utility companies. Utilities continue to outperform this year. And it looks like that's not necessarily slowing down based on how these companies are reporting. Corning also had a good earnings. Their stock is down in the pre-market. This is GLW. They just had a $6 billion deal with Meta yesterday. Corning, their earnings, they beat on revenue 26% year over year, beat by 1%. They missed on EPS by 3%. That's why that stock is down. Now, again, that stock was up a lot yesterday based on that Meta deal. I learned a little bit more about Corning yesterday on the market close as we were talking about it in the chat. Stock actually went green right now in the pre-market. It was red, hit 117. Now it's at 109. But this is a name that has to do with fiber, and that one continued to have a relatively good earnings. On top of that, you had AT&T. They beat by 13%, 53 cents versus 47 cents on EPS. Again, you want to see these legacy companies beat on EPS more than revenue. It means that something is going well with margin efficiency. And I mean, for a company like AT&T, beating by over 10% on EPS is no joke. Doesn't mean the stock's going to go to the moon, but it is really good to see that these older companies can still put up these numbers. They beat by 2% on revenue as well. And then you also had Starbucks, which let me know in the chat if everyone's already had their morning coffee or if you're drinking it right now. By the way, my apartment stopped putting out coffee. Like I went downstairs for the past 3 days. There's no coffee. I'm like, did we run out of coffee or something? so I can't drink coffee anymore. There's no coffee in the building. Starbucks, they missed by 5% on EPS, 56 cents versus 59 cents. And then revenue 9.1 versus 9.6. They beat by 3%. Starbucks right here in the pre-market is, wow, up 6%. All right, Street liked it, even with an EPS beat. So not too bad for Starbucks. There's a premium on coffee these days. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely getting expensive, but I'm like, dude, they can't even put out the coffee anymore? Like, do we just no free coffee for UPS workers? Yeah, exactly. Gave me false promises. I was just like, damn, where's like Can't even get a little bit of coffee. It is what it is. Maybe it's better for me to not even drink it in the first place. But so overall, companies are beating on earnings. Anthropic's growing revenue 300%. The high beta momentum rally is starting to be justified by certain companies and the partnerships they're making, like a Rich Tech Robotics with Microsoft. Doesn't mean that thing deserves to be at 550, and they did an offering today to take advantage of that. But there are real partnerships that are taking place, and now it's just a question of big tech can come through. I mean, in terms of glaring red flags in this economy, you're not seeing it in the jobs data, you're not seeing it in inflation data. You're not really seeing it in valuations. Not saying valuations aren't crazy. I understand some stocks have big valuations, but if those valuations went to zero, I don't think it would affect the broader market. Even Micron still trades at a 15 forward PE. That is not crazy, even though it's up 40% this year. So you can't say Micron's a meme stock. NVIDIA still trades at 25 times earnings. It's like you're just not seeing a crazy level of euphoria, I think. I mean, crypto is barely moving, right? Now, gold and silver is a whole different question, but we talked about the dollar weakening with gold and silver. So I think if Meta, Microsoft, and Tesla, realistically, Microsoft and Meta, because Tesla is Tesla, but if they can just come through and not mess things up today, I think we'll be all right. I think we will be all right. And that's what we got to see. Having said that, I think we should talk about Microsoft and Meta today as well. UNH, where's that thing? It is up a little bit, 284. I'm not touching UNH. Talked about it yesterday. Just don't understand healthcare. I think there's so many better opportunities in the market than UNH. From all the takes I've seen on X, most people are saying stay away, let this really get resolved before even thinking of jumping in. It is not a screaming, oh my goodness, you have to get in. It is deeply undervalued type of buy. Like there are some stocks that waterfall 20% down and everyone's like, wow, this is like stupid. The market's got it wrong. This has happened. UNH has fell 20% 4 times in the past year, intraday, for a company that is the biggest health insurer in the United States of America. Like that is crazy. That means there's a structural issue, not only with the company itself, but with the narrative around the company. And I think you just stay away from that. I mean, let's say gaps up back to 300. Okay, cool. 280 to 300. Like, I don't think that's the opportunity to die for. So for UNH, I don't think it's the most exciting thing at these levels. Should I sell my UNH at a 10% loss and put it into Amazon? I am biased here. The day you sell your UNH, it goes up 10% and you're probably going to be upset about it. So like you have to make your own decision. But the reason Amazon's up is because they have a 20% stake in Anthropic. And when Anthropic goes public, Amazon is going to, just like GE Vernova had this massive tax benefit, or when Google beat EPS by 80%, what was it, 4 quarters ago, because they had like $8 billion gain unrealized on SpaceX. And when SpaceX goes public, that $8 billion is probably going to be even more. That's going to happen to Amazon. Amazon is a coiled spring. I think we all know this one's going higher. The bear case is not real. The only bear case realistically for Amazon was AWS growth deacceleration. The last call, Jassy said we are growing the fastest on AWS since 2022. I don't see the bear case here. I really don't. Now, unfortunately, Amazon is laying off 16,000 people. That is official, by the way. There were rumors for the past couple of weeks. They sent out a memo this morning to a bunch of their corporate workers where Jassy officially said we will be laying off about 16,000 workers. So that is now official, and that really will help Amazon get a bit more lean, which is good for their operating margins. But at the end of the day, this is happening. This was what the blog post said. I want to let you know that we're making some additional organizational changes across Amazon that will impact some of our teammates. I recognize this is difficult news, which is why I'm sharing it and why it's happening. The reductions we are making today will impact approximately 16,000 roles across Amazon, and we're working hard to support everyone whose role is impacted. Is this about AI taking jobs? They're going to say it's not, but it seems pretty damn obvious that it's not just glut that's in the system. I'll do the red-green poll in the chat right now. It seems like this is about AI making the world more efficient and Amazon realizing they probably don't need a lot of the corporate bureaucracy that they already had. So yeah, as a result, I think ultimately that's going to help Amazon's operating margins, and you got robotics, AWS growth acceleration, Anthropic stake. That should be enough to get it some momentum. Now, what are we going to do about job losses in general, long term? I don't have an answer to that question, but ultimately it's something that should benefit the tech companies. Vlad actually had a really good post yesterday. He actually put out an article this morning about 5 years post GameStop. and he was talking about what it's been like to deal with GameStop over the past 5 years and the regulatory hurdles. But Dario, remember we talked about his essay yesterday. His essay was all about how AI is not going to be the best thing for the economy. It's going to take away jobs, yada, yada. And Vlad was basically like, dude, if you feel like that, then you need to let people participate in the valuation for your company and have a piece of the pie. And his argument is just like, hey, Anthropic is raising at a $350 billion valuation. By the time you go public, the valuation is going to reach the trillions and retail is going to end up being exit liquidity. Google went public at 20 billion. So people got to buy Google from 20 billion and ride it up to 4 trillion over the past 25 years, which created a lot of wealth and democratized that wealth across a lot of people, especially in people's 401ks, obviously for the S&P 500. And I think it's a legitimate argument. Like if Dario feels so deeply concerned about the concentration of wealth and what AI is doing and how it's going to commoditize labor, yada, yada, and he's like ringing the bell that this is something we have to care about, you need to at least get average people the ability to have exposure to the assets that are going to be the ones that control all the wealth, in this case, Anthropic, or else they're part of the problem. So, I mean, I think it is a thought-provoking argument and it makes sense. Now, will retail actually get access to it before it goes public? Probably not, because at the end of the day, this stuff tends to be secluded, but it is going to be really important. And I do commend Vlad for trying to get more people to get access to it. Now, the irony of this is, let's say the Anthropic CEO was like, hey, all right, we're going to let retail participate in this new $350 billion round we're raising. Most of retail that would be participating are individual investors, but the broad majority of human beings, again, they don't invest. So they wouldn't even, most of them don't even know what Anthropic is. So it's like that sort of wealth inequality still remains present, which is that, yeah, maybe all of us get access here because we care about the markets, but the far majority of people that don't care about markets, they wouldn't get access to this. They wouldn't even care that this is happening. And so I think that broader wealth inequality is not necessarily going down. But I think our way to get access to it is Amazon for now. And that's what we got to do. Trump had a couple clips last night. Let me play these and then we will get into the market open. Here's what Trump had to say about inflation.
Literally it just shows how hard it is to clean up. Even after you close it, it shows the price that we paid under Joe Biden.
It's the hardest thing when you think of it. Inflation we've solved. It's done. We have it good. Where prices are coming way down. They were just saying in Iowa, the fuel is $195. Did you hear that? Somebody said $185, but it was $350, $450 just a year and a half ago. You look at eggs, you look at groceries, it's all down. Everything's come down. Do you notice they don't mention affordability anymore? That's like an old-fashioned word. They brought up affordability.
Literally, it just shows how hard it.
And then this is what Trump had to say about healthcare.
I've recently introduced my plan to repair the damage of the Unaffordable Care Act, the worst disaster, which now costs many families more than a mortgage. If you look, a number came out, it's a bigger cost than a mortgage, and it's bad health care. Obamacare was created to make insurance companies rich with government subsidies. I want all that money that gets paid to the insurance companies to get paid directly to the people. That's all I want. So
this is another reason I think it's hard to be long the healthcare stocks. Trump pushing this affordability narrative. I mean, it's basically like his credit card argument around the credit card companies are evil and they're hurting the consumer, but he doesn't have that much authority to like force a 10% APR. The healthcare companies, he can actually get some stuff done. And we saw that over the past 2 days with UNH. So, I mean, if Trump is going to be on this affordability push for the rest of the year, especially going into the midterms, if you're a company that is seen as a big, evil, greedy company that is taking away the concept of affordability from the consumer, Trump's going to be after you. And as a result, that might be an overhang on your stock as well. All right, here we go. We got 30 seconds. It's going to be a big, big day. Let's see how this market opens. A lot of headlines last night about Intel, NVIDIA, Anthropic. S&P 500 did hit 7,000 in the futures. We've got Powell in a couple of hours. We've got big tech earnings towards the end of the day. It is going to be an important one. Let's see if money comes in and loads up on these companies before earnings or if we have to wait until the market closes. But we're going to see how the market ultimately interprets that as we open up the markets. Wednesday, January 28th, 9:30 a.m. Thank you, everybody, for being here. The stock market is now open. All right, wake your ass up. Let's get into it. S&P all-time highs, folks. 697.22, 697.40. She is $3 from 7,700 on the SPY. SPX, let's see if we already hit it. SPX is 7,000. All right, technically we hit it. SPX, the official index to represent the S&P 500, that hit 7,000. Hopefully we can see that on SPY. But there you go. It touched it just for a second, 7,002.28. We did indeed touch it. Palantir down about 1% of the day. SMCI, that's up about 2%. Microsoft up 0.5%. Oracle up 0.15%. CoreWeave, wow. This thing fell all the way back to 98, just hit 114 after that NVIDIA $2 billion investment. Pretty damn incredible for CoreWeave. SoFi, 2071, that's up. Again, earnings are going to be really important on Friday. We'll be live for earnings and see how that one plays out. Ondas, that's up 4.7%. I will be having the CEO of Ondas on the channel in about 2 weeks. I hit up my Connect yesterday. They got me the direct contact I needed, and we will have the CEO on the channel. Again, I have no position in this company, but a lot of you guys love this one, so we'll hopefully be talking to the CEO soon. Robinhood right there, 105.25. That goes green. ASTS, 113. That's up 2.3%. Lunar, another space play, 2048. That is green. Where is the lab of rockets? We are at 87.56. That is up about 0.5%. Webull, 750. Duolingo, that's up a little bit. Salesforce, 229. Software is going a little green. AppLovin goes red. Kratos goes red. Kratos down about 1% right there. Archer is down about 1%. Boeing down 1%. Where's Starbucks? They had earnings. That stock 9% for Starbucks. That's pretty damn incredible. All right. So I think there was something in their guidance that the street really had to like on this one. How about GEV? That one basically flat on the day. Seagate crushed it yesterday. That's 420. Talk about a high stock price. That's 12%. 20 on the day, actually hit 422. That should be helping Micron. Micron right there, 424. That's up 3.4%. How about SanDisk? That's likely over 500. Of course, why not? 515.96. That's up 7.05% as well. PDYN, again, they got a U.S. Air Force contract. That's why that stock is up 41%, $410 million market cap as that one goes green. Rocket Lab pushing for 89. SPY still at 697. Amazon at 246. Good to see Amazon get a little bit more momentum right there. Grab, they let us get to 479 yesterday, and now they're taking us back down to 461. Again, we got earnings coming up, but this one down about 2% on the day. UNH a little green, that's up 1.2%. Palantir goes red by 1.3%. Microsoft losing most of its pump. You got a big red candle right there. It did hit 480 for the first time in a month. So we're going to have to see what Nadella can put up today, but Microsoft right there is red. By the way, our boy Cleo Fields in Congress, he bought $100,000 worth of Google. He bought $100,000 worth of Google in the last 45 days. His trades were disclosed yesterday. S&P again at 697.21. He sold his entire position in Figma, Iran, and Opendoor. He sold his entire position in Figma, Iran, and Opendoor, and he bought Google. So sold Figma, Iran, Opendoor, bought Google. Where's Iran, by the way? Are we at 60? Iran, 60.8. Looking like she wants 61. Intel is up because of rumors yesterday that NVIDIA is going to be contracting them for different fabs. That's why that stock's at 47.84. That's up 9% on the day. So for anyone who did buy that dip around 42.43, you are getting rewarded right here. Again, it's a rumor, not confirmed. But if that rumor is confirmed, that's a lot more business coming to Intel based on that NVIDIA partnership. Iran right there, 60.70. Where is Nebius? 100. All right. Nebius trying to hold on to that 2.8%. CoreWeave still pushing at 111, down a little bit from 114. Oscar, is that one down? Oscar 15, that's up a little bit. It was at 1480 yesterday. Lemonade, 87.69, that's just below 90. Big Bear AI, this one's been stuck for the past couple of days right now. Pretty nice day, 5%. I think it was up 2% yesterday as well. It hit like 530 last week. So this one also making a move right there, 647 on Big Bear. Wow, JP Morgan, Intel, Bank of America, Dell, SoFi to match government contributions to Trump accounts. They will match the U.S. government's $1,000 contribution for their employees. By the way, Trump, Bessent, and Nicki Minaj are going to be live at 11 a.m. talking about these Trump accounts. So that's probably why those companies have officially announced that they will be matching employer contributions for their kids' $1,000 Trump accounts. Bloom Energy, is that moving? That's moving. That was at 139 yesterday. Now it's at 158. These energy names are not slowing down. TE Energy, this one, 948. That's up 3.9%. That was below $8 the other day. OSS, baby, getting some love right here, 1105. Every time this one dips the next day, there are buyers that come in. That's up 4%. That's It's one of my favorite small caps in the market. You're seeing some momentum right there. SoFi again, kind of fading out at 25.60. Amazon getting a little bit of a red candle right there. Where is Meta? This is an important one. Meta goes red, 672. Why is Nicki Minaj going to be there? Because that's what Scott Bessent tweeted. He said Nicki Minaj will be there. And so Nicki Minaj is going to be there. It should be fun. We're going to get to see a bunch of people talk about these Trump accounts. In terms of the street's expectations on Microsoft and Meta, I'll pull those up in a second. By the way, our boy Rishi reiterated his $50 price target on Palantir yesterday. So he once again said that, yes, Palantir should be worth $50. Okay, Meta, the street wants $58 billion of revenue, $35 billion of EBITDA, and $8 of EPS. That's what the street is looking for on Meta. Those are the numbers they have to beat. Microsoft losing 480 right there. On Microsoft, the street's looking for $80 billion of revenue, $47 billion of EBITDA, and $3.92 of EPS. So if they can break those levels today, then that's going to be important. Do you still own Nebius? Yes, I have Nebius. I've owned it since they fell off their earnings. I like it. Realistically, I think the stock should be closer to 150. It's cheap. They're going to go from 300 million in ARR to almost 7 billion by the end of the year. I know they're not profitable. I know they have some dilution risks, but you can't hear TSMC increasing CapEx by 14 billion. You can't hear Seagate's earnings. You can't hear ASML earnings and not think we are in an absolute data center build out super cycle, and these neo clouds are going to benefit. Now, NVIDIA likes CoreWeave more than Nebius. That's like their trusted partner. So I think that's the benefit that CoreWeave has, but CoreWeave also has $14 billion in debt. Nebius doesn't have to deal with that much debt. So I think Nebius is a bit more diversified, and that's why I like that name. Intel right there, 4808. That's up 9.45%. Hut 8 Mining. We haven't looked at that one in a minute. That stock up 3% on the day. Wow. This stock looks like it's been up a lot this year. Hut 8 Mining, year to date, 24%. Cypher, all these names. APLD, shout out to that one. Massive day yesterday. That one's now down 2%. It had a 6% day yesterday. I mean, a lot of these data center names, a lot of them that got backstopped by people like Google that put in some investments in Cypher and Wolf, are continuing to get some momentum. ASML, are we going down? Oh, we went red. Now look, ASML was up 40% going into the print. The fact that they even went up 8% in the pre-markets just means there was a lot of excitement. At the end of the day, when stocks go up this much, you know, a breather is not crazy to imagine. So if you bought it at 1,500, you're probably a little annoyed. But if you've held it for the past year, held it even for the past week, you're probably not too upset about it. Silver at 115. It is getting ready to hit all-time highs again. Gold is $20 away from 5,300. Some of you guys might have seen 5,300 already on your screen. I'm looking at 5,276 on gold. It's pretty freaking incredible. BMNR, $30. Why are we moving on BMNR? Is ETH moving? ETH is not even moving that much. Maybe got some buyers just stepping in, wanting to get exposure, but ETH not moving like crazy. Iran, my goodness, $62. This thing got to 80 back in November before the crash, and then it fell from 80 to 35. So it is nice to see this one getting a little bit of love. Oh yeah, the crypto bill. So that I have a headline on that. Tomorrow, the U.S. government, the Senate, is voting on the crypto market structure bill. Thursday afternoon. Yeah, so maybe that's kind of why crypto is getting a little bit of a pump as well, but that will be happening tomorrow afternoon, and we'll see if that can actually make a meaningful dent in crypto. Snapchat is going to create an independent subsidiary for its augmented reality smart glasses, aiming to attract external investment and compete with rival Meta. Interesting. 768 on Snapchat. The new unit called Specs will feature an intelligence system to assist users and is actively recruiting for nearly 100 positions. Okay, so Snapchat trying to compete. Fidelity is launching their own stablecoin on none other than Ethereum. That headline just came in. This will be backed by cash and US Treasuries. That's good for the 10-year yield. Maybe that's also why Ethereum is getting a little bit of a push right here. Fidelity launching their own stablecoin on Ethereum. Uber. Is Uber down? Uber is flat, 81.30, even after they got an upgrade. Dude, PayPal got disrespected this morning again. The reason it's at 54.92 is because they got a downgrade to 50 by Redburn, and They said, sell it. We're cutting our price target from 70 to 50. The analyst sees diluting take rates, users shifting to rivals, and cutting their EPS estimates by 15 to 25%. I mean, it's just one of those names that, like, even the analysts, because look, when a stock goes down and you're an institutional analyst, you have to either defend it or agree and tell your clients you messed up. And it's really hard to tell your clients you messed up if you recommended it at 70 and now, you have to say it's at 50. But if it's just that bad, you have to bite the bullet and say, I'm sorry, guys, I messed up. Like, sell the stock. And with PayPal, you've just seen multiple of these analysts come out and say, all right, we got it wrong. It is what it is. SoFi right there, 2560. S&P again, trying to push 7,000. PayPal now below $50. Robinhood is 104, down 1.15%. Again, we've talked about Robinhood extensively. I think the street is really trying to figure out what's going on with the crypto revenue and ultimately if they can keep up those growth rates. Now, honestly, this might be a nothing burger, and Hood has a massive earnings and they show people that all the high beta momentum is happening on Robinhood, the options volume, yada, yada, yada is happening on Robinhood, net deposits are strong, all that stuff. And this thing goes back to 120 pretty easily. But for some reason, and maybe it's justified, maybe it's not, but you can't fight the market. The street is not perceiving Hood as the high beta play that it was last year. And maybe it has to do with valuation. And because the growth rate might not be able to live up to the valuation. But Robinhood has been stuck for the past couple months now. BM&R right there, that's up 2.3%. Where is Zeta? Zeta, $20.04. Zeta also got hit yesterday with the other software names. Rubrik, this one getting a low recovery. This was down 9%. NVIDIA, are we at 192? It should be based on ASML earnings. Yep, 192. Hopefully that can hold on to that. Did we get a Trump tweet? Wow. If anyone tells you he doesn't care about the markets, don't believe them. Yes, I know my phone is not charged. I don't know why this thing is never charged. The S&P 500 just hit 7,000 for the first time ever. America is back. Someone's happy. Someone is happy. Hard to be bearish when the guy in charge is staring. What if he's watching the market open right now? What if this just like popped up on his YouTube feed? And he's seeing the S&P hit 7,000. He's seeing it hit 7,000. 192 right there on NVIDIA. Uber 8140. Snap up 3%. I ran right back to 61. ASML, that's up 1.15%, even though that is down from 1,500. AEHR, that's up 10%. Nice. Air Test Systems getting some love. Back up 10%. My phone battery never goes under 50%. That's crazy. The amount of situations I've been in with my phone at 1%, and I've somehow survived those situations. I mean, I've been in some pretty bad situations with 1%. Like, honestly, I should buy Apple stock just for allowing me to survive those situations at 1 or 2%. Like, it's bad. I don't know why I do this. I don't know if I like living on the edge or something, but that's why I don't have a case on my phone. Look at copper. COPEX, baby, 92.57. Let's see how these calls are doing. Yeah, they're up 50%. Dude, I had these free. I had $60 calls on COPEX for April that I bought at 50. They would have been so deep in the money. Let's look at them right now. I bought them at $8.50. We go to options, April, $60 calls. They're trading at $34. We would have been up 5x, 4.2x on those calls. I sold them at 65 in November. Everything was crashing. I was like, well, let me make some money somewhere. But, to be honest, it has forced me to really deep dive into copper in a much more serious way. And I don't know, it just feels like this trade can really happen. But it's also happening because silver is continuing its momentum. And if silver doesn't stop, then maybe other commodities will follow. The Qs just hit a new all-time high. Wow, 636 on the Qs, baby. This is before Meta and Microsoft. So it's a little scary because if Zucks and Nadella don't deliver, we're going to have a little bit of pain. But they need to deliver. APH, this is also similar to GLW. You guys were saying yesterday that stock is down 12%. Is GLW down? Corning is up 2.3. Not sure why APH is going in the opposite direction, but Corning is up a little bit on the day. Have you mentioned Tesla? So the only reason I'm not mentioning Tesla is because they're not expected to have good earnings. It's nothing against Tesla. It's just they're not going to grow revenue or earnings again. So this is going to be the fourth quarter in the row they don't grow earnings, which is okay. I think Elon just needs to tell everybody the robots are coming and really make a big deal out of the robots coming. But Meta and Microsoft are going to put up real growth. They're going to have, Tesla spends on CapEx, but, Tesla's not seen as like the company spending $100 billion in CapEx that's going to help NVIDIA and all this stuff. Like Meta and Microsoft spend a lot of money on NVIDIA and AMD chips. And the street needs to know why they're spending that much money. Tesla gets, an excuse. Tesla, the street's like, all right, in 5 years. Tesla has the most potential out of any company in the entire stock market, in my opinion, if they figure out robotics and obviously if they really scale FSD. So the street is priced in that premium, the Elon premium, whatever you want to call it. So I just don't think they're that important to the market. If they tank, it's like whatever, like people already think the stock is super expensive, but Microsoft and Meta are not expensive. Like it's hard to make the argument that Microsoft and Meta are expensive at these levels. These stocks, Meta was $780 in July. Microsoft was $550. Meta now is at $673. It was at $600 a couple of days ago. Microsoft is at $470, $480, and it was touching $449 last week. Tesla goes down 10%. I mean, people can't be that upset about it. It's like, it's Tesla. It's trying to get a premium. But Meta and Microsoft go down 10% today. It'll get ugly. And I don't think they will, but they're going to have to really show the earnings growth. And then the call is going to have to be good to justify why they don't deserve to go down. Bloom Energy, that's up 5.4%. So that one getting some more momentum. Oscar right there is up 1%. Intel still pushing at 48. SPY has not hit 700 yet, but it's trying. It's trying to get there. EOSC, that's up 4%. Is it too late for COPEX calls? Again, my fear with copper is that if silver and gold top, copper tops. Just like when Bitcoin tops, the altcoins top. Based on the research I've been doing, that's a possibility. That is a bear case. But copper independently feels like there is just such a structural demand tailwind that it's not going to matter. Having said that, the answer to your question is you have to position size it. Like if you're getting in this late, then you have to position size it correctly. If you go in heavy and you end up being wrong, it's bad. If you go in light and you end up being wrong, it's not the worst thing in the world. So I think until you develop a lot of conviction on copper, which even I'm trying to develop my conviction and seeing if it's real conviction or if it's just, the heated price going up. Like, is it price sentiment conviction or is it actual conviction? I don't know yet, which is why it's a very small position. And if it goes to zero, it sucks, but it doesn't kill you if it goes to zero. Which is the biggest lesson I think I've learned from Stanley Druckenmiller. It's like how position sizing will really help you with psychology when it comes to this. UNH, is this going higher? UNH 291. All right, that's up 3% from 282. That's getting some more momentum. Palantir, are we down? We are down at 162. Don't have a reason for it going down, guys, outside of the SaaS bloodbath that continues to happen. I think if Carp can give us a good earnings guidance, that helps. But again, it sucks to say Palantir and Hood have heavy valuations when you look at other stocks that have run up over the past month that also have some heavy valuations. But then again, those stocks are not up 20x from the lows. And that's the only thing I can point to is like Palantir and Hood are up a lot from the lows. So is NVIDIA, even though NVIDIA's valuation is a lot more reasonable. And so the market might be consolidating. Quite frankly, people might be taking profits. And if you bought Hood at $20 or Palantir at $30, you might have some people saying, you know what, I want to put a down payment on a house. I'm going to take some profits here. And that could also be something we're seeing. The analysts continue to be bullish. I mean, Palantir got two $200 price targets over the past 2 weeks. So it's not like the analyst community, I think, is giving up. I mean, Robinhood literally just got a $130 initiation of a price target yesterday. And the analyst was like, yeah, the street's overestimating crypto too much. The analyst was like, I don't know why it's pegged to crypto, but this is a much more important business than crypto, which I agree with. But I also understand the street's perspective on crypto. Rock Lab right there, 88, as that continues to go higher. DBB is a metal futures ETF. I've heard of this one. If anyone wants to get exposure to just the metals in general, DBB is not a crazy one to look at. But again, when you're buying this, you're essentially buying gold, silver, copper, palladium, all this stuff at all-time highs. And you have to be okay with that if you're going to get exposure for it. Amazon right there, 246, that goes green. Oracle, 178. CNBC is reporting NVIDIA and Amazon may be a part of the new OpenAI funding round. Wow. They're raising at $830 billion. if NVIDIA actually invests, that would be a good sign of confidence given Jensen. I don't know. It looks like he was hesitating over the past couple months when talking about investing in OpenAI. Amazon investing makes sense. Amazon has a $38 billion AWS contract with OpenAI. So, of course, they would be investing. Intel up almost 10% on the day. What's going on with Micron? Are we still green? Yeah, up 5%. Again, Micron's pumping because of Seagate. Seagate, another memory play. They crushed it yesterday. I mean, they just demolished, 16% up. I mean, the fact that this stock went red after hours for about 10 minutes, and then the call started, and the CEO's like, yeah, we're booked. Like, we're booked for a long time. And we don't know when we're not going to be booked, but for the foreseeable future, we are freaking booked. And then the stock just started rallying. By the way, an Intel CFO yesterday bought 4,000 shares. First insider buy since 2024. So you had an insider buy. Yes, SK Hynix also had massive earnings. And that was a good thing this morning for Micron. Rich Tech Robotics, are we reversing? We are going down. So they did an offering this morning. Sucks if you bought this in the 550s or whatever, but companies do offerings when their stocks go up by 50% and their market cap is less than $1 billion. I mean, the company would be stupid to not take advantage of all that liquidity. So that's why this stock right here is down 12% on the day. Fear and greed. Where are we at? We are at greed. Wow, this is the highest we've been in a long time. Huh. Kind of sucks that we are this high before Meta and Microsoft earnings. 68. Look at that, 69. Almost pushing extreme greed. Robinhood, by the way, reversing 106, 103 to 106. That was green. Last time we were at 69 was, September, right before the dump. September 22nd. It took a month to dump after this, but right around that time. So we are definitely not in the fear part of the broader market right now. Robinhood right there, 106.45. BMNR, $30, still holding on. Bank of America, red. USAR, red. Your rare earth stocks are red. MP is red. JP Morgan's red. Morgan Stanley's red. That's why SoFi continues to kind of be stuck. Broadcom, 334. Great recovery from 315, which is good to see. Bank of Canada interest rate decision. They left it at 2.25. I forgot the Bank of Canada was making a decision on interest rates, but they kept it at 2.25. The United States will also likely keep our interest rates at 3.5 to 3 3/4. So it's like no one is cutting today. CrowdStrike right there, that's up 2%. Do you think Hood is buying back these levels? Honestly, I have no clue. We'll find out in a couple weeks on earnings. I don't know. I mean, they bought back at 104 in November. So, we're basically at those levels. It wouldn't be crazy for them to be buying back here. They have about 900 million they can use to buy back stock. And it would, if they do buy back here, it'll be very obvious that they feel they're undervalued at these levels, especially going into this year's growth expectations. So we'll know pretty soon if they are doing that and what that means for their EPS growth. Netflix right there, 85.69. That's flat. They can't buy back literally right now. That's fair because they're in the quiet period. But I mean, Hood's kind of been stuck for the past month. So if they wanted to buy back, they probably could have by now. Okay, what else? What else do we see? Poet, that one's going down. 8%. They do an offering too? Dude, there's another stock a lot of people got excited about yesterday. LTRX, Electronics. I saw this get hyped up on X yesterday. Anduril proxy, Ondas proxy, trading at 2x sales. And that's why it's getting some momentum. I don't know exactly all the inner workings behind this, but volume today is 3 million. Average volume is 500,000. So obviously retail is piling into this one. But there's a bit of an Andro proxy here. They have some drone exposure, and they don't trade at 100 times sales like On does. So I think that's why people are liking this one. Again, very small cap, $300 million LT. I don't have a position in this, but it's one of the names that's been circulating around. UNH 291, that's up 3%. EOSC, that's up 3%. Let's take a look at the heat map today. By the way, what are we thinking of Meta and Microsoft? Let's do a poll right here in the chat. Relatively green, NVIDIA, Micron, Broadcom, and AMD leading the way. I think for Microsoft, we just have to see deeper monetization in Copilot. Azure is obviously going to crush it. We have to see like more average revenue per enterprise seat and show that people are upgrading to like this $30 a month stuff. 80% of you said we'll go green today. And then for Meta, I really think people that feel it's going to pump off the numbers, maybe that'll happen. But I think it's about the earnings call. Like if we don't see Zuck's actually articulate why he's spending all this money, even if it's from Meta Compute, competing with GCP, AWS, and Azure, all that stuff, in a way that the market can digest properly, I don't know. I don't think it's as easy to say Meta is definitely going to pump, as much as I think it's undervalued here. I think this is going to be about the earnings call. Palantir reversing a little bit to 164, and Zuck just has to articulate himself clearly. In fact, Meta actually got an upgrade today to 870. Even the analysts are getting annoyed at this price action because they think it's so undervalued. Here's what Bernstein said. It's still January, which means gyms are full of New Year resolutioners, weather permitting. In the AI gym, where gains are measured in tokens and MMLU scores, Meta looks like the scrawny kid in a gym full of bodybuilders named Claude, Gemini, GPT, and Grok. But don't mistake size for strength. What if Meta is the elite bodybuilder Anatoly in disguise? And isn't the point to get in shape, not just look bigger? It's an expensive gym membership, but the greatest feeling you can get is the pump. Expect Meta to still be lifting in December. The analysts have lost their mind. I mean, this dude is making, it sounds like ChatGPT wrote it. It's like he's making metaphorical analogies to justify to his clients why Meta should go higher from here. And I hope he's right, because you got a lot of institutional investors that are probably pissed off that they bought Meta at 750 in July, and they've been holding a bag on this thing. But this thing needs to pump. This thing needs to pump. 1.7 trillion in market cap right here on Meta. UNH 291, that's up 3. Intel, a little bit of steam, but still up 9%. And then Tessie, 437. It's a LinkedIn type of post. Dude, I went back on LinkedIn last year and I told myself I would start posting. I think I posted like 5 times. So every time I think of posting on LinkedIn, I'm just, I can't do it. Like, does anyone here actively post on LinkedIn? Do you like engage with people on LinkedIn? Like, it just feels so fake. Everything feels so like polished. And I'm like, I just can't do it. I should be doing it. Like, I should be having a professional network, and I just don't do it. Rocket Lab, are we at 90? Rocket Lab, trying to go for it. Trying to go for 90 right here. I'll put that analyst report in the chat for anyone who wants to read it from Meta. Amazon, new highs of the day. Amazon, she wants 250, 247 right there. She's trying to get there. Why doesn't it feel fake on other apps? I don't know. And people, you know, this is why LinkedIn gets such a bad rap, even though they do $16 billion of revenue every year. Like, again, Microsoft owns LinkedIn. Just there's something about LinkedIn where it feels so corporate. And it's hard to just be yourself there. But I guess it's because professional, and, you know, you wouldn't act the way you act at home, the way you act in the workplace, and LinkedIn's like the social version of that. 697 right there on the S&P, a little bit of a red candle. Trying to get above it. ASML still down 1%. BM&R fading again. Canadian dollar rises to the day's high, strongest since October 2024. That's because the USD is weakening. Let's look at the dollar right now. We're at 96.20. Again, not the best for our European friends here that have to deal with this. Google launching a podcast to connect with advertisers that are building on Google Ads. Okay, Google's launching a podcast to talk about Google Ads. It makes sense because the whole AI ad ecosystem is going to be heating up. I mean, we talked about it yesterday. ChatGPT is reportedly going for $60 CPMs on their ads inside of the chatbot, which is like Super Bowl level CPMs. Like, I cannot believe that's what they're charging. But if that's what they're charging, what the hell can Google charge? I mean, $60 CPMs. Google's going to, theoretically, I think Google's at like 15 on average right now. Meta's at 20. That's a 5x increase on CPMs if they can pull that off. I mean, that would be massive for the overall advertising business for Google. Circle getting a little bit of a bid, yeah, with the Fidelity stablecoin launch. Circle right there. Wow, not a little bit of a bid, 10% on the day for Circle right here. As that's getting some more momentum. Will Google Podcasts have ads about Google's podcast? It's a good question. That's a good question. CEOs are on LinkedIn. You know, actually, the guest that our first guest for Steve and I's podcast, we connected through LinkedIn. As much as I'm shitting on LinkedIn, so ironically, I really never checked LinkedIn. I would have missed that message. He didn't message me on Twitter. He didn't send an email. He messaged me on LinkedIn, and so it is still a very valuable resource to have. Which is why I should be posting more on it, but I just don't post that much. Reddit went green. Reddit got hit yesterday pretty hard. Reddit 196, down about 20% over the past month. Tigris Financial raised the firm's price target on Intel to 65 from 52, kept a buy rating on the shares. You had a lot of these analysts raise these Intel price targets. Is silver hitting new highs? We are at 115 on silver. Gold, my goodness, $6 from 5,300. FOMC's at 2:30 again, 2:30 Eastern for FOMC. Dude, gold's about to hit 53. At this point, we're going to 6,000 gold, right? Like, at this point, we're going to 6,000 gold. U.S. debt rating is stable. Fitch is likely not going to have a second downgrade. Fitch says a second U.S. credit downgrade is unlikely because the stable outlook means no downgrade is expected in the next 1 to 2 years, with the dollar's reserve status remaining a key factor despite recent volatility. Remember, in 2023, they cut the AAA rating to AA+, which kind of created a little bit of pain in the stock market. That's kind of weird. Why aren't they down? Like, I don't want them to downgrade our debt, but why aren't they doing it? Like, why did they do it in 2023? But not, like, I feel like our debt has gone into a worse situation since 2023. We've printed more money and the dollar is weakened. I mean, I guess they're thinking we're kind of bottoming on the, I mean, you know what I really think happened? I think Larry Fink gave somebody a call at Fitch and said, if you downgrade the US debt, you're going to have some problems, buddy. I genuinely think sometimes you have some bigger forces that are like, yeah, you can't do that. You're going to mess up too many things if you try to do that. Intel right there, $48. Palantir 163.40. Dixie still at 96 on the day. What else? What else do we see? Intel right there, 48. Micron 427. That's down a little bit. Is anyone buying Micron here or the memory names? Ridge Tech getting hit right here, down 13%. Anyone selling them at 420, 427? I mean, Micron now up almost 50% year to date. SanDisk up 120% year to date. Bloom Energy, that one's still running. Wow, 163 from 139 yesterday. ASTS as well. That's up 4%. Nebius can never hold 100. This thing, for the life of it, cannot hold 100. I was talking to Derek this morning, and Derek has worked in the computer, like his entire business is based on computers. So he's seen like increases in memory and the supply chain gut and all this stuff. And he's like, dude, I'm annoyed that I missed Micron because I know so much about memory and DRAM and all that stuff. But he's seen these boom and bust cycles so many times. And as soon as it feels like the supply is there and there's not a supply shortage, these things crash. The difference is this time, theoretically, there should be a supply shortage for a long time. And if there is, it's why this party should keep on going. By the way, JP Morgan, their top semi picks are Broadcom, Marvell, NVIDIA, ADI, Micron, and KLAC. Those are their top semis picks that they put out earlier this morning. Another reason gold and silver is up and why assets probably have to go higher is Rick Reeder is going to be likely the next Fed chair. Take a look at what he said yesterday about interest rates. I mean, when you listen to this guy talk, it means you got to hold hard assets because it's likely that the US dollar is going lower and that more and more money is being diversified.
That's pretty powerful.
I want to talk about the Fed and cuts. I just did a snap poll on X, and we have, most people think 2 cuts. That seems the majority. Second most would be 1, and then 13% said 0. I am in the 13% camp. I just don't see the need for it. What's the problem here? Why cut rates? Why change something if it seems to be going so well right now?
So I throw out one thing. So you think about the Fed raised interest rates 500 basis points. What was the impact on the economy? Not really debilitating. And I think one thing that we've learned, U.S. economy is not that interest rate sensitive. Technology-oriented, service-oriented. Most companies that fund CapEx today, the big hyperscales we're talking about, don't borrow. They do it through free cash flow. The interest rate tool is incredibly blunt, except for one thing. The housing market is incredibly sensitive to interest rate. We have a housing problem in the U.S. economy. It's not enough inventory. And I've said this before, Fed brings interest rates down. You actually reduce inflation because what happens today, home builders are subsidizing mortgages. Why you saw this at KB Homes. You've seen it with a number of the home builders. You can't sell houses until you subsidize that mortgage rate. So they don't build enough houses. Inventories stay too low. Inflation, shelter inflation, which is the stickier part, doesn't come down enough. My view being, if actually we got to get that mortgage rate down and we have incentivized people to build houses, I don't think, I mean, by the way, you cut rates, you're not going to increase inflation. If anything, I think you reduce it. Listen, I think you got a bit of room that you can move the rate down. I think I'm in the 2 camp. I was still in the 2 camp when we were at 5 cuts 2 months ago, but I think they can do it. And I don't think it'll be debilitating, certainly to inflation.
I mean, this is the guy for the next 6 years we're likely going to have to listen to and pay attention to every little thing that he says. And he's dovish. He is. I mean, even J. Powell has never been that explicitly. This guy's like, yeah, we need rates to come down. We need to open up a housing market. So if he's right about that, then I think we're going to get a lot more momentum in hard assets and obviously the stock market as more money ends up flowing there. Bessent is live. Yeah. He's talking about the dollar. Let's pull him up and see what he has to say.
All of people have a favorable view of socialism, and a little more than 50% have a favorable view of capitalism. What's going on there?
Well, I think that dovetails somewhat that 38% of American households have no exposure to equities. So I think with these Trump accounts, the president's done peace deals, trade deals, and tax deals. But imagine like this enduring legacy as the children who are born in 25, 26, 27, 28, in 18 years, when these accounts have been compounding for that period, the money goes into a broad-based index fund. And I've done a lot of financial literacy, and this is a real-time learning experiment. So everyone is we're going to shoot to get everyone a stake in the great innovation in our country, in the economic engine. And I bet if we do this survey in 5-10 years, we'll have drastically different results.
Well, it helps that the S&P is making new highs every day. We're coming off of 3 straight years of double-digit consecutive gains in the S&P. We're at 7,000. Yep. I mean, how sustainable is that?
Again, markets fluctuate, but I think we put in the good policies for sound economic growth, and we are seeing record S&P earnings. We're seeing the trillions of dollars of investment come back to the U.S., and we're seeing inflation move back towards the Fed's target. So, and that as someone who's studied this and made a career of it, that with the performance doesn't dictate what we're going to see this year. It's events and it's policy. And yeah. I think we got great policies.
I mean, speaking of investing in America, I mean, one question people have right now is the appeal of U.S. assets, especially when they look at the U.S. dollar, which is trading at multi-year lows. I know the president sort of endorsed this as a good thing. yesterday. But is it really a good thing if people are wondering if the dollar is the right place to be?
Well, again, U.S. always has a strong dollar policy, but a strong dollar policy means setting the right fundamentals. And I think that with President Trump, with the One Big Beautiful Bill, with our regulatory policies, we are making this the best place to come, build your business, have tax certainty, regulatory certainty, energy certainty. And over time, the prices on the screen can fluctuate over 6
You don't
months,
worry about
a year.
dramatic weakness in the dollar?
That again, if we have sound policies, the money will flow in, and we are bringing down our trade deficits. So, automatically that should lead to more dollar strength over time.
Are we intervening in the currency market right now, strengthening the yen? Is that happening?
Absolutely not.
Is that something you're?
I don't know if, I mean, Bessent is straight up denying that, but lots of reports are saying the U.S. is getting ready to strengthen the yen to help these bond yields. You got Bessent denying it right there.
Planning to do? There was word that the New York Fed was looking for prices.
Again, we don't comment other than to say we have a strong dollar policy. And again, I think President Trump has the past year, 2025 was about setting the table. And now I think we're going to have a very strong economy this year. The Democrats don't shut down the government. The Atlanta Fed GDP now number is 5.4%. When was the last time we saw that?
It's a high growth number. And one of the questions is, can we get that kind of growth without sparking inflation?
I think we can, because what causes inflation is supply constraint. And with the deregulatory agenda that we have, we are creating supply, whether it's in financial lending, whether it's in energy, we're increasing manufacturing. So again, what led to the great inflation was the Democrats caused a demand shock with government spending, but they caused a supply constraint with all the overregulation. We're doing the opposite. We got a private sector boom, and we are taking out dozens of regulations for every new regulation that goes in.
But there will be stimulus this year as a result of the big beautiful bill, the tax refunds that are set to hit the economy. I guess the question is, can we avoid inflation in that scenario? We're already starting to see it in wages.
Sorry?
We're already starting to see wages climb.
But we're also seeing substantial productivity. So productivity and wage growth does not lead to inflation. And there's measured inflation and observable inflation. Measured inflation is with a lag. So we can see that rents are substantially down. It's different than the measurement. So the observable inflation, some of the more online or quick sampling inflation numbers are substantially below 2% already.
Today, it's Fed Day. We're expecting the Fed to do nothing today on rates. Is that a mistake?
That's up to the Fed, and we'll see what they do. I do think that there are many members on the board who had a false narrative on inflation, and I hope that they will have an open mind and see what's coming over the next couple of months.
Speaking of what's coming, when do you expect the president to make the decision or the announcement around the next Fed chair? Because this weekend is when Governor Myron's term is actually up.
Well, it doesn't have to be up. So it can continue. I went out with the president to Iowa for a great rally yesterday, and we had a long discussion on the plane back.
Did you make your recommendation?
I don't make recommendations. I give the president options and outcomes. It's going to be the president's decision. And again, the president has great respect for the Fed. We have 4 great candidates.
4 candidates. We haven't narrowed that down.
Sorry?
We haven't narrowed it down beyond 4.
We haven't narrowed it down. We haven't expanded it.
Okay, and we don't know exactly when that announcement is coming.
Only the president knows.
Okay, so the other sort of factor on investors' minds right now is the geopolitics. The fact that this week President Trump is raising tariffs on South Korea because they haven't ratified their trade deal. What signal does that send to some of the other countries that you've negotiated these deals with and have already announced them?
Sign the trade deal. it's the South Korean parliament has not passed the trade deal. So there is no trade deal until they ratify it.
So that's until they ratify it, they will face the 25% tariffs?
Well, I think it's helpful to get things moved along.
What about Europe and India signing this massive trade deal? Does that threaten America, that some of these countries are moving ahead with free trade without us?
Again, they should do what's best for themselves. But I will tell you, I find the Europeans very disappointing because the Europeans are on the front line of the Ukraine-Russia war. The Europeans, India started buying sanctioned Russian oil, and guess who was buying the refined products? The Europeans. So the Europeans have been funding the war against themselves, and like something that you couldn't have made up. The U.S. sanctioned or put a 25% tariff on India for buying the Russian oil. The Europeans were unwilling to join us, and it turns out because they wanted to do this trade deal. So every time you hear a European talk about the importance of the Ukrainian people, remember that they put trade ahead of the Ukrainian people. Trade, European trade, more important than ending the war in Ukraine.
They need energy, though, I guess, is part of their issue.
At a price, they want cheap energy. Like, we could have cheaper energy too if we were willing to buy sanctioned Russian oil.
What about Canada? We've got a bit of a rift there lately, and there's different accounts between you and Prime Minister Mark Carney about that call this week post Davos with President Trump. He says that he dug in and reinforced the message. You said that he walked it back.
I was on the call. Prime Minister Carney, in my investment career, I've seen what happens when a technocrat tries to pivot and become a politician. Never really works out well. So I would just encourage Prime Minister Carney to do what he thinks is best for the Canadian people, not his own virtue signaling, because we do have a USMCA negotiation coming up. And he rose to power on an anti-American, anti-Trump message. And that's not a great place to be when you're negotiating with an economy that is multiple larger than you are and your biggest trading partner. In the end, I think we will end up in a good place. It may not be a straight line.
Are you saying that they will face consequences in these trade negotiations, reopening the USMCA?
I am saying that I would not pick a fight going into USMCA to score some cheap political points. Either you are working for your own political career or you're working for the Canadian people.
What about our own government? Now, as you referenced, we could be barreling toward the shutdown at the end of the week. Last time we did see an economic effect as a result of the shutdown. What do you expect?
We did. I don't know what to expect. The Democrats can become unhinged like they were last time, and they don't care. Like they think this is a way to stop President
Trump.
Trump.
They're tapping into something in the mood of the country when it comes to the funding of ICE.
Again, President Trump has brought down the temperature on the situation. He's in constant contact, and he is urging them not to shut down the government. And again, that much of what happened during the shutdown, or some of what happened during the shutdown, that gets pushed into this quarter. But especially on the service side, when the government shut down, that never comes back. So there's a big permanent loss. I hope the Democrats won't do that again.
Are you hearing from business leaders on Minnesota and what's going on there? They've been a little reluctant to speak out, but we are seeing them communicate with their employees about the situations. What do you hear?
I haven't heard from any business leaders on it.
Do you see any potential economic fallout around this if we see, I don't know, certain pockets of workers, immigrants reluctant to go to work, that sort of thing?
Well, what I can tell you is that we've seen about 2.5 million the illegal aliens, either through voluntary deportation or ICE deportations, leave the workforce. And one of the things that no one believed would happen was we're seeing the low-end housing or low-end rents go down. So affordability, part of the affordability crisis was letting in 10, 20 million new people who all needed a place to live. So what we are seeing is better affordability.
Yeah, on the affordability, the business leaders that I talk to, always praise the Trump administration as being pro-growth, pro-business. But this year, there's been some surprises. The latest is the health insurers selling off on keeping these Medicare rates flat, but also, trying to get Wall Street out of the housing market, capping credit card rates. Some of these are seen as more populist, less pro-business measures.
Well, again, the business leaders always want everything all the time. This administration, if we take the big banks or all banks, at Treasury, at the three regulators, controller of the currency, the Fed, FDIC, we've been very pro safe, sound, and smart deregulation. They got record profits. The stocks are at a record high, and then they get upset when we want to examine the credit card business.
This is pretty incredible coming from Bessent. They spent all of 2025 being pro-business. I mean, you didn't even hear the word affordability come out of Trump or Bessent last year. And now it's like, hey guys, your stocks are right. He's right. All those bank stocks are up 30, 40% over the past year. Now he's like, now you got to give us some love here and get us some popularity between our base that is going to have to vote for us in the midterms. The problem is that's kind of not how business works. You can't just say, well, now that your stock's up, we're going to cap your credit card rates at 10% because then the stock's going to go down. Like, so it's very confusing. You got Bessent choosing a lot of different angles right here, but it seems like the administration is honing in on this affordability argument.
President Trump has said that Obamacare is really just a subsidy for the insurance companies. All we did was saying, look, we're not raising the amounts that we're paying to these healthcare providers who have gouged the government and not provided great service to the American people.
So you're gonna stick with these policies. A lot of people think that the credit card one can't ultimately pass Congress.
Again, sir, what we've seen is in the old days, you used to compete on APR, the annual financing rate. Now you compete on benefits, on rewards, and the benefits and the rewards go mostly to upper end clients. So why not pull down the benefits and the rewards a little and have a look at the rates? Because before the GFC, the average spread over Fed funds for credit cards was about 1,000 basis points, and now we've just blown that out.
Okay, well, we'll see what happens and where that one goes. But we certainly appreciate the time here at the Trump Account Summit, Secretary Bessent. Thank you.
That's a lot of stuff from Bessent in a lot of different angles. I mean, the biggest thing he said, to be honest, was that we are absolutely not intervening with the yen. And look at that green candlestick on the yen, 152.80 to 153.70. As soon as he says that we are not strengthening the yen, guess what? It weakens as soon as he says that, which is not really good for bond yields. The 10-year right there spiking at 4.253. Yeah, you had a lot of stuff come out of that interview, critiquing Europe. He had some harsh words around Europe, called Mark Carney a technocrat who's going to fail as a politician when it comes to Canada, said that we're not manipulating the yen, and then said the credit card bank companies can't be mad. Their stocks are up, and now they have to help the consumer. It's just, I don't know if logically that makes sense. If they can realistically help the consumer by capping their credit card businesses. JP Morgan makes $15 billion a year from credit cards, which is why their stock is trading at the multiple that it is. You can't just take that to zero. So just a lot of different angles there from Bessent, and ultimately the markets will have to interpret how that comes together with whatever Powell says today, and then whatever we get from big tech earnings. Snapchat right there is up 4%. Broader markets, while he was speaking, didn't do much. I mean, if anything, the S&P stayed flat, 697. ASTS, a little bit of a move up 5%. Nebula still below 100. UNH just lost 290, but it's at 288. Robinhood's basically flat on the day, but green. Rocket Lab trying to make that run back to 90 again, 89.20. SoFi goes red. Grab still down 2%. SMCI up 3. Oracle up 2. ASML, unfortunately, 10% to now 2% red, as that one is down on the day. The Qs are also still holding on, up 0.5%, a little bit more than that. Meta 675. Where's Apple and Tesla? Tessie lost a lot of its pump, but still green. NVIDIA I mean, at least it's holding on to 190, but could not hold on to 192. Google still pushing along at 336, Amazon 245, and then Meta at 675. Very weird comments from Bessent, but nonetheless, this is what we are seeing. Where's ARM? This is another name that SoftBank owns a lot of. ARM right there, down 4% on the day. Has this one performed this year? ARM year to date. Why is the fear and greed index on high greed? Well, I mean, ARM is down 3%. I mean, it makes sense, right? Like, dude, you have a lot of names that are, but then again, it doesn't make sense because like Meta and Microsoft are not greedy. But then again, Rocket Lab and Ondas are pretty greedy, right? So I don't know. It's one of those things where it's like, if Ondas or Rocket Lab were to go to zero, would it really affect the whole stock market? Not really. If Meta were to go to zero, obviously that would be a big deal. So I think the high beta momentum around nuclear, drones, aerospace, space in general, all of that's leading to the greed, but it's not in the Mag 7. I mean, outside of Tesla, you can't say, outside of Tesla and Apple, you can't say any of those stocks are like euphorically trading at some crazy valuation. Yeah, gold and silver, that's probably contributing to it as well. That's fair. I guess you can say there's some extreme greed there, but that extreme greed has been met with just more extreme greed every day. Silver up 6% on the day. Gold is up 3.62% on the day. Kratos down 6%. Is that hurting Red Cat? Red Cat's flat. Ondas up 2.4. I don't know why Kratos is down. But that one is down. Elevance Health had earnings today. They missed on revenue, beat on EPS. ELV, that's up 5%. So a little bit of recovery from the news a couple days ago around health insurers. Mizuho upgraded Circle to 77. Visa upgraded a Cantor Fitzgerald to 400. And again, we talked about SoftBank potentially investing into OpenAI. Where's SoftBank stock? That stock, I mean, that could be another way to get access to OpenAI, just buying SoftBank. Year to date, that stock's down 5%. Remember, they did sell about $6 billion of NVIDIA to get access to more capital for OpenAI. By the way, I don't, the Wall Street Journal saying they want to invest another $30 billion as of last night. Where the hell are they getting $30 billion from? They already put in $20 billion, and they had to take a loan from the Saudis against the Vision Fund, which is their like VC conglomerate, to even be able to get that money. I think they also took a loan against their ARM shares. They own 90% of that. Where are they getting another $30 billion from? Like, it really begs the question, how are they, and again, why are they so enamored with OpenAI? Like, what do they know that is going to make OpenAI so special? Or is it Masa having a Masa moment? For those that don't know, WeWork, if you never heard the story of WeWork, literally was in a limo with Adam Newman, and I mean, just on the spot, he gave him a check for $4 billion. Like, the guy really, you talk about us as vibe retail investors. That dude took a $4 billion vibes check and wrote it to zero on WeWork. Because he was like, yeah, WeWork's going to be the new office conglomerate of the world. So I wonder if his OpenAI is just the vibe, which would be kind of crazy if it is. Palantir, are we red? We are still red, 163. He's trying to make up for having sold NVIDIA. Yeah, but that means he's expecting OpenAI to go to 10 trillion. Minimum 5 trillion. And it's like, dude, the type of cash flow and profitability that NVIDIA is putting up to even get to 4.5 trillion, I don't think OpenAI is going to be anywhere close over the next 10 years to get there. Even if they grow at these levels, because growing top line revenue is irrelevant when it comes to the profitability metrics that justify a $5 trillion valuation. Like, I don't think anyone, unless you're Michael Burry, thinks NVIDIA is euphoric. When you actually look at the underlying operating metrics, it's like, no, you can reasonably say why this company deserves to be like $220, $230, which is above 5 trillion. But that's the bottom line. OpenAI is not going to have anything on the bottom line for at least the next 7-8 years. They're planning to lose money until 2030. So I don't know. It is confusing, but it seems like that's their big bet. Nebius right there, potentially going red. UNH 289, S&P losing 697. Small wallet, thanks for the super chat. Admit, at what price would you buy PayPal? at this point, dude, I don't understand this business too well, but based on all the analyst reports and based on the sentiment and, based on the CEO and CFO, I've heard a couple of their conferences in early January that they just don't seem that bullish. They've literally said it's going to take not a long time, but they said we're going through what's that phrase? Transformation year, I think is what they said, which basically means like don't expect anything. I just don't think you can touch this. There's just so many other things you would touch in the market. Because even if you're saying, okay, PayPal's bottom, it's like, I think all of us thought it bottomed around 60. It's like, no, it's at freaking 54. What's to say this thing can't go to 50 if they have crappy earnings, which let's just say they don't put up any meaningful growth on earnings. So I think you don't touch it. I just think you don't touch it right here. Albert, thanks for the super chat. Today, my mom gave us the 50 grams of gold our relatives gifted my daughter at birth. She'd been keeping it in a safe in a deposit box for the last 15 years. Wow. That's special. That's very, very special. That is so cool. That's so dope, dude, to like do something like that for your grandkids and hold it just because long-term it'll work out. It's nice. 15 years of appreciation on that gold that your mom has been holding on to. Reddit right there, 196, that's flat. ASTS, that's up 4%. Will you be doing a Palantir Weekly? We will not be doing a Palantir Weekly. Again, for those that have been asking about Palantir Weekly, we talked about this last time. The guys just don't have the time anymore. It's like, it's not that we don't love Palantir or anything. It's just, well, it's two things. It's number one, Arnie's like traveling and going across the world and stuff. Amir just moved from Sweden to Japan. It's tough to get everyone to come together at the same time and do this. When we were in 2022, all of us had literally nothing to do. That's when, religiously every Friday it was easy to do. But second of all, the other thing is, the Palantir story has been told. Now we want to see how big the story can become, but the sort of mystery of uncovering this company when the stock was trading at $6, it's just not the same anymore. It's just not. And sometimes things have to come to an end. Now, that doesn't mean we don't care about Palantir, but the sort of obsession of 3 years, every single week, covering this thing, trying to figure out what happened. Like, we figured it out. The street figured it out too. And the mystery has been solved. Now the question is, how much higher can it go? But it's not the same type of puzzle that it was back then. And so unfortunately, timing-wise and also just life-wise, it's a little tough to make it happen. But we will be together on earnings. We'll spend an hour after earnings dissecting the earnings and going through everything. So we still will have an earnings stream. What's the next stock like that? There isn't. I don't think there ever will be, dude. I don't think there ever will be a stock that is that mysterious, has that much potential, that much excitement. Remember, a stock has to give you the ability to talk about it if you're going to dedicate your entire brand to it, which is what I did in 2021. And like part of the reason I dedicated my brand to it was because there was so much to dissect. I mean, like I literally have 2,000 videos on this channel. That's not even it's not a joke. There are 2,000 videos on this channel about Palantir. I don't think there's ever going to be a company again that is that complex and interesting to actually analyze. It can't be Rocket Lab, dude. It already went from 4 to 90. It did the thing already. Like for this to happen again, you have to find a stock that could 20x, then is under-discovered, but still has so much to discover. I don't think it's Zeta. I don't think it's Rocket Lab. I don't think it's Grab. I don't think it's OSS. It's not Big Bear AI. It's not Oklo. Although Oklo got an upgrade yesterday to $40, and the analyst was just like, hey, if you want nuclear exposure, buy Oklo. Maybe Oklo's not that crazy, dude. I know when it was at 150, I was like, okay, this is getting stupid. Actually, no, it was at 190, and I was saying this was getting stupid. Then it fell to 140. Now it's at 89. I still think $13 billion market cap is kind of stupid, but if nuclear is happening, maybe it's Oklo as like a proxy. It's UPS. Yes, exactly. It's United Parcel Services. Dude, what's a parcel? What the hell is a parcel? What does that even mean? What is a parcel? A collection of things wrapped in paper. Oh, that makes sense. I thought it was postal, dude. I thought the P standed for postal. Parcel. I'm going to get fired from my job. I don't even know what the P stand for. That's crazy. That is crazy. Intel losing some steam, 4780. Gerstner's on. Oh, we got to listen to Gerstner. Let's pull up Gerstner. Gerstner is an interesting guy. He's an interesting guy. They're probably talking about the Trump accounts, but we'll see if they also talk about the broader state of the markets.
Targeting the kids in the bottom 75% of the income, right? So Michael's contribution is for the zip codes where the median income is $150,000 or less. So I think there's going to be plenty progressive.
All right, let's talk about your stock portfolio. Broaden the conversation a little bit, because today we start to get earnings from the Mag 7, Meta and Microsoft after the bell. You're not in Meta anymore.
Correct.
Are in Microsoft. What I think one of the big questions going in is, what are the CapEx numbers?
When did he dump Meta? I thought he was in Meta. I didn't know he dumped it.
Plenty progressive.
All right, let's talk about your stock portfolio. Broaden the conversation a little bit, because today we start to get earnings from the Mag 7, Meta and Microsoft after the bell. You're not in Meta anymore.
Correct.
Are in Microsoft. What I think one of the big questions going in is, what do the CapEx numbers look like, to see whether the sort of momentum around the AI trade can continue? What do you expect?
Well, I mean, unquestionably, we're in the middle of the largest infrastructure build out in the history of compute. We have a massive compute shortage in this country. And the reason we're short is because the value of AI to enterprises and to consumers, whether it's ChatGPT or whether it's Claude Code, is so great that the demand on those is for more tokens than we can possibly generate today. So for the NVIDIAs of the world, the ASMLs of the world, the SK Hynix of the world, all the companies that are in the compute value chain, the CoreWeaves, et cetera, they have more demand than they know what to do with. So pricing is going up, margins are going up, revenue's going up. That's where we have the majority of our portfolio. Now, for the Mag 5, for the Amazons and Metas and Microsofts of the world, they're the ones spending the money to build out this compute.
Does that continue to
and
spend at double-digit rates?
It continues in a massive way this year. The spending, the CapEx from that group alone is going to be over $500 billion this year. So I think it's critical and great for the country that we get this build out. But make no mistake about it, all the shareholders in those companies know they've messaged it well. They're going to continue to invest aggressively because it's a high ROI investment for those companies to make.
Is it a high ROI investment, and when does that start to show itself?
Well, we already see it. I mean, Azure would not have its growth rates. AWS would not have its growth rates. Google would not have its growth rates if they weren't renting out NVIDIA GPUs in the cloud to all of the customers who are using them today. So I don't think there's a debate as to whether or not they're going to see a return on that. The debate has been, are they over-investing, right? And we'll know they're over-investing when we have excess supply, when we have dark GPUs. Remember back in 2000, we talked a lot about dark fiber. Only 7% of the fiber going into the ground in the year 2000 was being utilized. 7%. Today, it's 100% of the GPUs that are being built out are being utilized.
Right. So I was going to ask you why you still like sort of the infrastructure, picks and shovels part of the AI trade. If you think it's going to really result in high ROI, why not broaden it into some of the beneficiaries?
It is broad. We have over $1 billion invested in OpenAI and Anthropic, large investments in both of those companies. We had large investments in lots of other private AI companies. And then the public markets, when I invest in Gemini, I'm investing in Google, I'm investing in Gemini and AI. When I invest in Amazon, I am investing in AI. So those are the apps that are going to power, kind of the next leg of growth for all of these major companies. I, as a shareholder, am glad to see them investing aggressively in compute. In fact, what I would tell you is they didn't invest aggressively enough over the last 2 years, right? If you look at Amazon, they have shortages they've talked about. Microsoft, shortages that they've talked about. And that goes to show you, as much as people want to criticize Sam Altman on my podcast, Sam Altman has been out in front for 3 years telling the world that we're walking into a compute shortage. And here we are in 2026 with a massive compute shortage.
Speaking of, are you going to participate in this next round? We hear that they're raising more money.
Yeah, so I mean, if and when, OpenAI raises more money, and I think there are a lot of people who would like to give them more money for their next round of financing. It'll likely be the last round of private financing ahead of their IPO. We're here celebrating all these kids' accounts. I want Anthropic and OpenAI and SpaceX to get public so we can put their stock into the accounts of America's kids.
What do you guys think? Are you buying his defense of OpenAI? He's acknowledging the podcast moment. He's saying he'll put more money in. He wants them to go public. I mean, is he just saying that, or do you guys think he actually genuinely is advocating and believing in OpenAI here?
Deserve to share the upside of
Why
AI.
do you think OpenAI stock would do well right now?
I think it'll do terrific. You know, there's a lot of FUD in the world, fear and uncertainty about OpenAI. And if these were public stocks, everybody would say Anthropic's doing great and, you know, and OpenAI's doing terrible. OpenAI just announced in the last few days that they've added $1 billion of API revenue in the last 30 days. The reality is the tsunami, the tidal wave that all these companies are surfing is so large, they're all going to do well. Sure, they'll compete one against the other, but OpenAI is doing great. Certainly there are things that I'm sure they know they got to do better. Same with Anthropic. But I'm excited to be a large shareholder of both of these companies, and I'm also excited to participate in their IPOs over the course of the next 12 to 18 months.
Are they raising another $100 billion right now?
My expectation is that they will raise another large round ahead of their IPO. I think the company has talked about their intention to do it. You've seen reports out there about major companies like
SoftBank.
Amazon and SoftBank and Microsoft and NVIDIA that may be looking to participate. I'll let the company announce that, but I will just say this. When you look at the financials for the business, this is one of the most important companies and will be one of the most important companies in the future of AI. It is a great thing for America that we have the leading labs, the leading chip company in NVIDIA. Imagine America without NVIDIA. Imagine America without OpenAI and Anthropic. It's a great thing for this country that the leading AI companies and chips on the planet are here in America.
Okay, so you're doubling down on that, even though there are questions that it doesn't, has to spend a lot. I think another $100 billion reflects the fact that this is just going to be so costly to build out. They have to borrow a lot. They have to do all these deals with customers like NVIDIA to get it done.
Let me challenge this assumption a little bit, okay?
Okay. You're the one who challenged it with Sam Altman.
No, but I was giving Sam an opportunity, as I shared with you when we were in Pebble Beach, to explain what I thought was increasing fear and uncertainty about OpenAI that was not warranted, okay? So here's the situation. They have reported they ended the year with over 40 billion of cash on their balance sheet. If these reports are true and they're going to raise another 70 to 100 billion, they would have over 100 billion of cash on their balance sheet. That is a fortress balance sheet. Now, on the other side, how much are they spending? Well, a year ago, people thought that they were going to go build all these data centers that were going to cost $50 billion a pop. I haven't heard them break ground on any data center. I hear Microsoft building data centers, Oracle building data centers, CoreWeave.
That's not a good thing. The whole point is that they're spending a ton of money with Oracle and all these companies on data centers. So when he says, well, they're not spending this money, I mean, technically it's good that they have that money on their balance sheet, but also it disproves the entire thesis of all this 1.4 trillion of capex that they're supposed to be spending.
Building data centers, SoftBank building data centers. They're buying the tokens that come out of those data centers. And when they buy the tokens, they have revenue coming out the other end of that. So from my perspective, Sam got out there and he cajoled the market to build more compute. The market responded. They're building more compute. And now they have cut deals. They give them.
Is he saying Sam went out into the market and cajoled, AKA lied, by saying we're going to spend a ton of money on compute to get everybody else to be hyped up to spend a ton of money on compute so that OpenAI could be the beneficiary of all that compute without actually having to spend their own capex on compute? I mean, that's basically what he's saying right here by saying that Sam Altman and OpenAI aren't spending any of the money on these data centers, which, remember, they told Broadcom they spend $80 billion on data centers. They told Oracle they would spend $300 billion on data centers. Is that just me, or is it that is a very strange defense of the OpenAI investment?
The option, right? They give them the exclusive right to buy the tokens that get produced by those buildings. They don't own the buildings themselves.
Finally, Brad, just have to ask you, majorly in the news this week, are you responsible for the new tariffs on South Korea that the president announced? Because we know that you sued the South Korean government. You're a stakeholder in Coupang. You think they've been unfairly targeted. Was this part of the friction that now lies at the center of the U.S.-South Korea trade negotiation?
First, let's just up level here for a second. For the first time in a long time, we have an administration that is saying enough is enough. Europe, you can't unfairly treat our companies like Meta and Apple. China, you can't unfairly treat our companies. South Korea, you can't unfairly treat our companies. America First is give our companies the same treatment we treat your companies. We're not discriminating against Hyundai when they want to compete in America, so they shouldn't discriminate against our countries. That is the principle that's at stake here. It's the principle that I support and agree with. And I'll let others take on, the tariffs and the Kupang fight. That's not what I'm about. What I'm about is that we need to have a principle that all parts of the world treat our companies as fairly as we treat their companies in our markets.
Okay. Brad Gerstner, thank you very much.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you, especially at an event that's so meaningful to you. That is Brad.
All right, word of the day. We're doing it early today, folks. Word of the day has to be cajoled, meaning to persuade someone with flattery or gentle coaxing, often to do something reluctant or to obtain something through such persuasion. I mean, cajoled the market to build out data centers by saying we're going to spend a bunch of money on data centers, and then they don't end up spending that money on data centers. I mean, he's right. OpenAI hasn't built a single data center. Where are the data centers? Like, where are they? They haven't even started yet. Quite frankly, it might actually be something effective that, like, this might have been the master plan from Sam Altman the whole time, is get everyone riled up about building this stuff so that they can build it and then they can buy our tokens, which is the juicy high margin revenue, so we don't have to spend the actual capital expenditures. But it's a little shady, to say the least. Cajoled, huh? That's where it is. That what you did to your cheerleader friend? You guys still don't believe this cheerleader story. It's incredible. It's incredible. Nothing I can do can get you guys to believe this thing. That's crazy, bro. That is all right. So first of all, is it just me? Let's do a poll right here. I did not get a good vibe by how Gerstner was talking about it. First of all, he admitted this is the last private funding round before they go public. That's news. That's Anthropic for sure. We know is going public this year. He's almost acting like OpenAI is definitely going public. 75% of you say Microsoft and Meta will both pump. Did you think Gerstner was being sus in his defense of OpenAI? Sus is short for suspicious. Also, we need OpenAI to go public to put them in our kids' accounts. I get what he's trying to say, but I mean, it really does sound like he's saying we need some exit liquidity, and we're going to have $3 billion of exit liquidity by putting it into all these kids' accounts every year. Granted, I mean, look, these kids are not going to touch these accounts for 30 years. I think OpenAI will be around 30 years from now, and they probably should be a more valuable company. So I get it. But using the kids as exit liquidity is crazy. The kids' accounts are SPY. That's fair. The kids' accounts are just SPY. So I guess he's imagining OpenAI will eventually join the S&P 500. But just his overall defense, even when she said, would you invest? I'm not a body language expert, but the way he closed his eyes, the way he took a little bit of a deep breath, he was like, yeah, I'll invest. It wasn't like an enthusiastic. And then when he acknowledged the podcast situation, Sarah was right. She was like, you're the one who brought up this concern with Sam Altman. And he was like, yeah, I brought it up to give him a platform to talk about it. And then he just went to go explain his case without acknowledging the elephant in the room, which is that when you brought it up for him to talk about it, you're one of his biggest investors. And he basically told you to kick rocks and said, sell your stock if you have an issue. That was the guy's response. So he's not even acknowledging the fact that Sam Altman basically told him, I don't really care if you're in this or not, Brad. I'm doing your stupid little podcast right here, but you can either sell the stock or not. Which, by the way, they could have avoided all of this by just cutting that part out of the podcast. It's something called editing. I know we're in the world of AI, but there's a lot of software that's been around for a long time where you can just boop, clip, put out, okay, cool. No one had to ever know that happened. How could no one on Brad's team be like, yeah, this looks a little, not the best. We have a big stake in this company. A little bit of a heated moment. Let's just take that part out, Imagine this whole downturn never even started. This whole bubble stuff never even started if they didn't have that moment. But that was weird. That was a weird defense. S&P 500 losing a lot of its gains today, almost going flat on the day, 695.84. Yeah, but then that's sus. Dude, I'd rather have a sus jump cut in the middle of a podcast versus everyone being like, oh, Sam Altman, is getting antsy with one of his oldest investors because he obviously does not have a response on this 1.4 trillion in capex. And by the way, if Gerstner's interpretation now is that Sam was cajoling everyone with all this capex, why the hell did he ask that question? Because obviously the answer to that question is we're not going to be spending that much capex. And if Gerstner was looking out for his investment interests, he probably wouldn't even set him up for that question because he should have known it was a cajoling. I think he just found out last week that it was a cajoling. He probably really thought OpenAI was going to spend 1.4 trillion in capex, which is why he asked the question, because obviously he was freaking curious. How are you guys going to justify that? And then given it's a cajoling, Sam gets mad, pisses him off, and now Gerstner has to acknowledge, yeah, they probably aren't going to actually spend that much money. Why is SoFi dying? What is wrong with this stock? Down 1%, 25.20. By the way, you know Kajol is a name of one of the biggest Indian actresses in the world. She's in my favorite film. I think it's DDLJ. That's what it's called. DDLJ. All my Indians in the chat probably know her. But cajoling, that's the word of the day. SoFi 25.17. I don't know, dude. That didn't make me feel that bullish on OpenAI. It really makes it feel like they just want to take that bad boy public and make a lot of money off of it. And I don't know. Right now, who's buying the OpenAI IPO? Like the Anthropic IPO, I could imagine myself buying it, even though it would suck because it would be at a crazy premium. But you can see the workflows interacting in real life. With OpenAI, at the end of the day, it's consumers using it. And I get it. 1 billion users matters, but it's not like 1 billion users is the most monetizable. Snapchat is 1 billion users. They can't make any money. So OpenAI is going to have a better model than Claude to really win in the enterprise. And right now, it looks like the enterprise lock-in is happening with Anthropic. Would rather buy more Palantir. Yeah, dude. I mean, OpenAI's valuation at $830 billion makes Palantir look ridiculously cheap. Given Palantir is in the enterprise, they're growing 70%, and they're profitable with operating margins at 50%. If Palantir can get those operating margins closer to 60%, that's not crazy. UNH 293, that's up. Also, they still have the Elon lawsuit they've got to deal with. Did you talk about Chris's Amazon calls following Nancy? Chris has always been in Amazon calls. I don't know what calls you're talking about. I mean, he probably bought more. Chris will actually be at my house tomorrow. He's coming for the meetup, so he might make an appearance on the market close maybe tomorrow. But he's been in Amazon calls for a while. I mean, I think he likes Amazon. I know a lot of people that are in Amazon. I mean, there's a decent chunk of people that are in these Amazon 300 leaps for January 2028, which I don't think is crazy. I'd rather just buy the stock because you never know, but I don't think the $300 leap is that big of a deal. You are so Desi with your DDLJ being your favorite movie. It is the best Indian movie of all time. There's a theater in India that still plays it 25 years later. I know every song from that movie. Like, it's actually the greatest Indian movie of all time. I don't really watch any new Hindi movies because I feel like they're just, I don't know. And I think a lot of the movies have lost their touch, but that one's the best one. NVIDIA 191. All right, so nothing else is really moving. I don't think we have any other crazy headlines here. Financial Times. Elon has proposed the SpaceX IPO to coincide with a rare planetary alignment and his birthday. The rocket maker is targeting mid-June when Jupiter and Venus will appear very close together, known as a conjunction for the first time in more than 3 years. That would actually be a pretty cool IPO story. He's literally using astrology to determine when to IPO a space company, which is kind of cool, to be honest. It's kind of dope. So there you go. Jupiter and Venus appearing close together is when they're targeting mid-June. All right, so that means Rocket Lab mid-June, 150. Is that what we're going for? Is that what's happening? Is that when the aliens land? Oh, right. Astronomy, not astrology. Sorry. Yeah. I was thinking of like Mercury retrograde or some shit. Yeah, you guys are right. Astronomy, not astrology. Although, what's the difference, to be honest, right? What's the dollar? Dollar is 96.40, up a little bit. Gold and silver still up. Gold up 3%, silver up 6%. Dude, if Noto doesn't pump this freaking stock, like, I mean, I'm not going to be mad, but it's going to be annoying. Dude. The stock is under the dilution price at 27.50. Like, it's cheaper than what they diluted at. You just got to imagine they have, but the problem is if it pumps to 27.50, like that'll be nice from 25.20, but that's where they diluted. So if this thing doesn't at least get to 29, I feel like it's just going to be a disappointment for the share price, even though the earnings should be good. Now, again, if you're long SoFi, it doesn't matter. It's just, I think a lot of us definitely want to see a pump this quarter. If we don't get it, it's whatever, but hopefully it would be nice. Bitcoin below 90. Rubio, we are in a good place with Greenland now. Okay, happy to know that after a week of threatening to take over their sovereignty, we're in a decent space with Greenland. Oh, Rubio's being investigated right now? Hold on, let me pull this up. Or not investigated, but he's testifying.
An Iranian presence or the sale of Iranian weaponry or anything like that into their country. So I think there's alignment there. We think and can argue that some of these criminal elements, which they've allowed to act with impunity in parts of their country, is a deal with the devil. In the short term, it provided revenues to some corrupt regime officials, but in the long term has created real destabilization, not for just them, by the way, but also for Colombia. Just understand something. The FARC dissidents and the ELN operate with impunity from Venezuelan territory. They control Venezuelan territory.
Yeah.
And some of that was through deals with individuals aligned with the regime because they made money off of that. But we don't think that's in the long-term interest. And what's been expressed to us by leaders of the interim authorities is that they agree. And now we're going to test it.
Despite the public commentary, there's a recognition, you think, and progress.
Look, we all have politics.
Yeah.
Even in places like that. Suffice it to say what I've said from the very beginning, and that is we are going to judge based on actions, not words. And that's going both ways. You can tell us you're going to do all these great things. If you don't do them, you didn't do them. Or you can say, I'm not going to do these great things, but if you do them, you did them.
Good.
And I think we can point to some things now that show you, just as an example, think about it. Within 2.5 weeks of Maduro's removal, they passed reforms to the hydrocarbon laws, which basically roll back many of the Chavez era restrictions on private ownership and investment in their country. It doesn't go far enough. It probably needs to do more, but that's extraordinary. That never would have happened 2 or 3 weeks ago. It certainly wouldn't have happened if Maduro was still there. So I think these are signs of progress.
All right, market's going down a little bit. I wouldn't be too worried here. This is what happens every FOMC. You tend to get a little bit of a dump right before J. Powell speaks. The thing is, last time we knew we were getting a cut and the market's expected a pump, and we did get a 1% pump. This time we're not going to cut. So I don't know if the markets are going to react. I mean, they're probably going to, there's going to be some reaction. It'll come down to the wording of the statement that'll be out 30 minutes before the meeting, and it'll be the trajectory of how many rate cuts they expect. I think we get an SEP, a summary of economic projections, in January, right? I'm pretty sure this is the first one of the year where we should get a dot. If they have at least 2 cuts, if we have 1 cut, I think we might go down. Not going to lie. If we have 1 cut scheduled, I think we might go down. If they up that to 2 cuts, which I think they should, given some of the bullish members on the panel, I think we probably go up a little bit. So is this the catalyst to like make a big market move? No, I think that's Meta, Microsoft, Tesla after the bell. But dumping right here is not that surprising because, you know, people are also scared. What if J. Powell says something crazy? So people are probably de-risking right before the FOMC. Tesla receives approval for full self-driving tests in Sweden. Is that true? That's bullish for FSD. Yeah, Tesla receives approval for full self-driving tests in Sweden. Okay. Good for Tesla. Now Elon just needs to tell us the robots are coming soon. He did say by end of next year, he's going to start selling it to people. I don't believe him. I'm just going to be straight up. I love you. I do not believe an optimist will be in your house doing the dishes by the end of 2027. I just don't believe that. I fundamentally do not believe that. I think it could be inside of like a Walmart factory or a warehouse in Amazon, but I don't think it's going to, I think putting it in someone's home, I mean, that AI better be phenomenal. I don't think we're there yet. But he's got to cajole the market into thinking that's going to happen. Talk about how this is going to be the biggest product in the world and get this thing to go up. Oh, what else do we have? Is Trump about to go live? Oh, Trump's about to go live. He's going to be talking about the Trump accounts. What other headlines do we have? What are the big movers today? UNH, little move. Intel move. Is Iran still holding 60? Iran 6170, dude. This has been the best data center stock compared to Nebius and CoreWeave. I mean, it's just been the best one. Also, a lot of people think they have an Anthropic deal, so the Anthropic revenue is helping them as well. S&P almost flipped red. ARM battery, still one of the big problems of robots. So some of these companies have figured out a way to at least resolve the charging stuff. There's like a, I don't even know how you describe it, but the robot basically steps on to the charger and it just stands there. And there's a variety of different mechanisms they use. One is like the magnets connected with the batteries, and it can get like a full charge in 5 hours. I don't know if Tesla's using that exact technology. I think to an extent they're going to be doing something like that. But literally imagine a robot packing boxes. It runs out of charge, and then it just walks onto its charging port, just stands there for a couple hours, charges up, and then goes back to work. Like, this shit's going to be crazy. Induction charging, correct. That's what it's called. Induction charging. It is going to be absolutely crazy when it gets there at scale. Oklo, that's up 5. Texas Instruments is up 8%. What else do we see? Yeah, Robinhood's enabling 24/7 trading and self-custody with tokenized stocks. They are starting to roll that out to a lot more places today. That was another headline from Hoodie. Also, did anyone win a Super Bowl ticket? They gave away Super Bowl tickets yesterday. I forgot at 8:30 they were doing that. But they gave away 20 tickets. Has anyone here been to the Super Bowl? I've never even been to an NFL football game. I've been to a college football game. Actually, no, I went to the Army-Navy game back in December last year. But I haven't been to many of them. Hims dumping. This stock has just been, wow, 28.89. Still has a pretty massive short float as well. Super Bowl is so expensive. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I've never been a fan of live events like that, especially for sports. I feel like you're just so much more relaxed when you're just watching it at home. But obviously, if you're a big fan of the teams, then it's a different reason for it. My son was born during the Super Bowl, February 2nd, 2022 to 2020. That's such a cool birthday. That's so dope. 2020 Super Bowl was fun. That was the last Super Bowl that I had in college before the whole COVID thing shut down, everything. I think the Chiefs won that Super Bowl. I'd rather buy Nebius than go to the Super Bowl. Nebius goes red. 97.15. What else do we have? We have that Amazon official announcement of cutting jobs. Talked about Bank of Canada. We heard from Bessent and Gerstner. ServiceNow, this one is at 132. They have earnings today. So outside of Microsoft, Meta, and Tesla, you have ServiceNow, IBM, Lam Research, Waste Management, Celestica, FICO, Southwest Airlines, and Levi's. So do you have a decent chunk of companies that are reporting today? Is anyone getting the SpaceX IPO? I still think the SpaceX IPO is going to be just a massive, massive premium. I mean, it's being pitched at basically $1 trillion in the secondaries, which means they're going to go public at 1.5. Some of the secondaries have 850 billion. I mean, this thing's going to be above $1 trillion when it opens up. I don't know. I feel like Rocket Lab's the better proxy. But the momentum just might be really strong. I mean, who knows? Like that, if they go public in June and we get a new Fed chair in May, and Rick Reeder says we're cutting these damn rates, and the dollar keeps weakening, and everyone's like, well, got to put our money somewhere. SpaceX is pretty attractive. I mean, there might be a lot of different ways to see it play out. Grab earnings is, I think, February 11th. And Robinhood is February 10th, if I'm not wrong. So in about 2 weeks, we have those earnings. Imagine the chaos if Powell raises rates. Well, so Trump's definitely going to be mad today, regardless. He's not going to raise, but he's not going to cut. And so we'll definitely get some angry Trump posts after the FOMC meeting. But if Jay Powell's a little bit more dovish than hawkish, we have the most dovish Powell in December that we've ever seen, at least that I've ever seen in 3 years. He said tariffs are a one-time thing. They're not inflationary. We cut rates. And he said we need to focus on the labor market. Now, obviously, GDP growth's been strong. Inflation's been relatively tame. Labor market's been tame. So they don't have the onus to cut rates again. But I hope he just doesn't flip super hawkish today. Amazon goes red, 243. Yeah, maybe the new Fed chair is announced after the pause. There were a couple people speculating about that. I don't think Trump would leak the announcement on a day like today, but maybe he gets so pissed off that he says, all right, here's the new guy. We have a shadow Fed officially. And that might be Rick Reeder. Rick Reeder's below 50%. Yeah, but he's still leading the polls. I mean, dude, he's at 46%, but the next person's at 31. So yeah, he's below 50, but Rick Reeder makes sense. The bond market doesn't think he's a loyalist to Trump like Warshin has it. And I just, we played a couple clips. He's a dove. He's a super dove. So it's hard to imagine that. I think that's why he's at the top, because Trump knows that, look, our bond yields, we cannot sustain these yields gapping up every month. So Trump needs to calm down the bond market. The only way to calm them down is to get someone who is perceived as independent, and the most independent yet most bullish person that's out there. I think even more than Waller, Reeder is more bullish, especially based on how he thinks about the housing market. So it feels like he might be the guy. Citi says silver to 150 an ounce. Now, Morgan Stanley came out today and they said we see the metals rally pausing because of China demand not being strong. Citi says strong China demand is driving the rally. So you have two opposite perspectives right here on China's take within precious metals. But Citi thinks it continues. Morgan Stanley came out today and said it might take a pause because of China. I have 20,000 on Reeder since 20%. You put 20,000 in the prediction markets on Rick Reeder? First of all, that's a hell of a trade. Put it in at 20%. Second of all, it's a lot of money, bro. 20 grand. I mean, I think you're going to be right. I think you're going to be right. So hopefully that ends up playing out. Meta goes red. S&P not red, but it looks like it wants to go red. I think that's pretty much it, guys. I think that's it for us. I will be back on the close, the FOMC. I'll be live at 2:25. We'll get the results at 2. I will not be live at 2. Unfortunately, I have a meeting from 2 to 2:30. I'm going to try to end the meeting 5 minutes before 2:30. And then we'll go live. There's also no need to be live that early because we're not getting a rate cut. So there's not going to be that much to analyze, to be honest. But when Jay Powell talks, there'll be a lot more to look at. So 2:25, I'll be live. FOMC, 2:30 it starts. If you don't follow me on Twitter, you can follow me on X. I will immediately have the decision out at 2 p.m. I already have the tweet drafted, already have the picture of Jay Powell ready to go. Now we just need the confirmation. And then FOMC will transition into big tech. Sam, Neil, Jose, Tanner will have a full house, and we'll get into it. All right, big day. Again, word of the day is cajole. There's no other better word of the day. Can't believe he said, yeah, he went out and cajoled the market. Like, bro, that is crazy to say. But that's our word of the day. I'll be back at 2:25. Hopefully everyone gets some breakfast or some dinner or lunch, wherever you are in the world. We'll be back, and it'll be a long 5-hour stream, starting with FOMC, going into big tech earnings. All right. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. I'll see you guys in a couple hours. Bye, everybody. Have a good one.